So
But
it's like, can you
that'll
put
be
more
fun.
color on the couch? So I go, fuck, bro. I have to work. I have to grind hard for this commission.
Well, you are doing it for a friend and a book. I think that comes
Yeah.
with the case. But welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Digital Archipelago, episode 22. We've been cruising right along with these. So I hope that this is our first stream in December for us, right?
Yes, it is.
So peak cozy hours are with us today. I hope that everyone's doing well. Gio, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm all right.
Good.
Yeah, my foot's better. So
That's really what matters here.
Oh yeah.
We got to make sure everyone's healthy and well. It's cold and flu season for so many of us, but that's what matters. Oh, it's the second one. Okay. Well, yeah, it's the 8th. So yeah, last one was December 1st. It all works out.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was December 2nd technically, because we had to change.
Oh yeah, we changed it to a Friday because
Yeah.
plenty of fun stuff were going on. But yes, we love December. It's cozy, as you saw from Gio as well as my own community posts. We're both on Millennial this year. So your
Yeah.
December is going to be packed filled with content. Gio, when are you on Millennial?
Well, I posted on my tab, but I'll post everywhere else. I'm on it's okay. I had to literally DM Woes to be like, what day is this? Because it's the EST time. So in his time, it will be the 18th at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. Yeah. And on my time, it's the 17th at 9 p.m. I'm assuming that's at nighttime. So yeah, that's when I'm on.
Yeah, just go
my time.
Yeah, Millennial Woes' Millennial website will always have it calculated to your local time, so you can check in. For him, it'll be Christmas Eve at 2 a.m. God bless him. For me, it will be December 23rd, that Friday, my birthday, at 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Eastern time, 8 p.m. Central here in the U.S. So it's going to be a very good week, very good month for all of us. And we all get to grow. Channel's been growing. The Twitter, Oren tagged me, and I think he tagged you as well, as for accounts to follow. And I went from 10K to almost 12K in a week. It's been insane.
I'm at 27K now. I just crossed over. Yeah. Yeah, it's great victory. Millennial. What was I gonna say?
Bap is back on Twitter.
Bap is back on Twitter. It's funny, it's just a cosmic serendipity that we both have birthdays on the 23rd of December. That's something I'll say. That's I can't believe that, but it's both our birthdays. So maybe me and Prude will be celebrating. What's the Digital Archipelago that week? What day is it?
It is going to be on the 22nd, a Thursday, but we can make it. I figured for that Friday we can just do back-to-back birthday streams.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, we had this idea of doing a multiple guest one for Christmas. So
yeah, we did. No, Mr. Patchouli, I am not hitting the big 3-0, but Gio is.
Yes, I am hitting the big. You're going to be what, 28?
I will be 27.
Okay, 27. Okay.
Yeah.
That's when you start panicking.
Oh, is it?
Those 2 years? Yeah. Yeah.
I had divided my 20s into 3s, and so I was like, okay, 24, 25, 26 is mid-20s, 27 is just downhill to 30, so I'm excited for getting closer and closer.
Yeah.
But
let me turn my camera on for obligatory cat posting.
Oh, go for it. The cat must be seen.
Yeah. Gertrude! Can you see Gert?
Gonna go wake the kitty up.
It's better to... there you go.
There you go. There's the cats.
Yeah, there's Gertrude. Gertrude. Oh, she woke up. Don't worry about it. She ain't waking up for nobody. So
well, that's probably fair. But no, so the reason, so someone asked earlier, why on earth do we have Morton Downey Jr. on the front? One, I think
Wally George.
Morton Downey Jr. Just the peak of shock jocks of the 1980s that would make Phil Donahue and the rest just look like garbage. But the reason why I have him on is because we sort of wanted to talk about the society of spectacle and current thing, because everyone has to get attracted to the current thing. Everyone has to look at what's going on for what is, quote unquote, the discourse, and trying to, it's a very professional act, I've noticed as of late. I was having a conversation earlier this week with a buddy of mine, Christopher Sandbatch, and he was talking about how there was this article that came out yesterday from Rod Dreher about sort of like he had said that he was subscribed to Fisted by Foucault, Niccolo Soldo, and I was just like, that wasn't on my timeline, but here we go. And he was just sort of talking about like, you know, the last pagan era in the book that Soldo had been reviewing and how he felt traveling in, you know, the 7 churches in Asia Minor that John wrote in Revelation. And he was just like, yeah, if you're part of this professional right trademark, you kind of have to like find niche, easy to go to topics because your entire career is built upon that insecurity that if I can't shill out the correct opinions at the correct times, then my income dries up and my wife leaves me for the neighbor. And I was thinking to myself, oof. But, you know, in a lot of ways in the world of writing and videos and content creation, a word I kind of don't like, but hey, that's the parlance. We're always like chasing after the almighty current thing to latch ourselves onto. And I try really hard not to do that in my videos. Like I've made it kind of clear that when I write one, I hope it still holds up a year from today. Because that's the fun thing about diving through some of our friends' work is that some of them hold up like really, really well. Morgoth and the Distributist hold up really well. Others, you know, if you're just covering current thing, right? Like there should be a place for it, which is why I think Academic Agent doing a show just on the news is appropriate because some of his other stuff holds up really, really well. Yeah, exactly. Who subbed to? Rod Dreher subbed to Niccolo, which is.
Do we want to address? Do we want to do the denouncing of Rod Dreher?
Oh, of course.
Or doxing and being just a general piece of you know what.
Yeah. So, that Crunchy can, you know, taps the soy jacking head of Rod Dreher. This crunchy conservatism can fit so much homosexuality into it.
Why? But like, here's what I don't understand. Okay, this is off topic, but not really, because it really shows, I think, why these people are so threatened. But Doxer Dreher, exactly. Why are they so threatened by the like Christian nationalist people? Is because here's the thing: if you had like Stephen Wolf running America, and theoretically, okay, their faith, and if I recall, Rod Dreher is an Orthodox now. Is he?
Yeah, he's had an interesting journey of just joining different churches, but he's Rocor, I think.
I notice for an example from here in Canada, if people remember Michael Corrin, never trust people that always change their faith like it's like laundry. You know, they're like, I'm a Catholic one day, I'm an Orthodox the next, I'm going back to like some other whatever,
Reformed
like people
tradition or whatever.
Yeah, like people like that. Just don't trust them. They're usually just libs at heart, and I think Rod Dreher is basically a lib at heart. So my opinion is that. Why are they so threatened by it? Because if you had like, and you know, Christian nationalism, we could talk about like the problems with it and like where it leaves us Catholic and Orthodox people, blah, blah, blah. But if you had a true like Christian nationalist awakening, theoretically, Rod Dreher would be in a better position than if it's run by, you know, Moloch. So I don't understand why you have to like harass and dox and cancel people because they flirt with like, I don't know, like racially conscious ideas. It's like, doesn't make any sense because literally if you're talking about Christians in the state that we are in the modern world, where it's literally a matter of our self-preservation and survival, then why would Rod Dreher basically go to war with people that would essentially preserve his position in society? But really with Rod Dreher, and this is the problem with the Benedict option, and my good friend, oh, there you go, bingo card.
Yeah, there's the bingo card. I should post that on the screen. Yeah, I'll share it on screen.
Yeah,
I put that in my bookmarks.
Oh God, Jannies, we have a Sex 69 in the.
Oh,
hot photos of your sister. Oh boy. I wonder. That's always a good that's always a good thing. Like that's a setup, you know. It's they got to put step for legal reasons in the. But anyways, Rod Dreher, and this is one my good friend Nathan Duffy called out way back in the Thermidor magazine days. Is that Rod Dreher, he really needs their liberal regime to give himself legitimacy. Because what is this whole selling point? The Benedict option. Why do you need a Benedict option? Because it's a recognition that Christians in America have lost not just the culture war, but have lost their position of material power and have lost their position of clout within society. So Rod Dreher really needs the liberal regime to truly oppress us, because then he's essentially like every single like conservative pundit, he's the beautiful loser. There you go. I said it. My good
So
friend
our friend and fan of the show called the Lonely Native Vitalist
Native
at Bart
Vitalist,
the
yeah.
Red. He made us a giant geo bingo for every time that we're on the show, so we can pull out all of these things that we've got there. So
look at this. They attack us. They attack us. Find my hot girls here.
Oh.
We mentioned them.
We talk about Rod Dreher once, and all of the sex bots come out.
The sex bots come out. Oh boy.
Simping should be a free space. Just saying. Well, it's a 4x5. We can add a whole other layer and reorganize this. So
of course,
but it's still, we got my good friend done. But yeah.
Yeah. What's your what have you generated, Prude, on that list? I'm trying to think. Like,
I would love it if our fans could do a Prudentialist bingo card. That should be next. Maybe I'll call on Bart the Red to do one.
What's the one that you always say? Like, someone did the car guy meme with you.
Oh, I don't remember actually.
You say it for the protected groups. What do you say? What do you call them?
There's so many other terms that I use. I've used the LGBT BBQ one before, but you know, it depends on all sorts of stuff. But I'll remember it as I go on. Maybe I'll look for the meme itself. But...
I like how I came up with McMartin Tunnel Conservative. Is Rod Dreher McMartin Tunnel Conservative? I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe. I find his crunchy conservatism, his conservatism with an edge, to be kind of funny, because I don't find him to be in that Overton window of what would be considered edgy. He actually fits the Richard Hanania article that came out not too long ago. And I have a mixed relationship with enjoying Richard Hanania articles and posts, because he's, as Dave had described him, he's like Dr. Bugman and Mr. Chad, where some days he'll tweet out stuff that just could be in a VDare article. And then the next, he's just being like, you know, the secular rationalist, my wholesome new atheist worldview of the world.
Yeah.
And but he had put out this article about like conservatism as just like this oppositional attitude that like it just says it just opposes. It doesn't do much else. And I feel like Rod does that a lot, or so does a lot of the guys that sort of write for the American Conservative and so on, is because you do make your money. That's your grift. That's your money making operation. Is that, well, you know, you're just going to write about these things and give it the old Rod Dreher, you know, biblical twist that I'm rich enough to travel around and enjoy my oysters and soy jack over them. And I take issue with it. And I had this post on Telegram about it earlier, where there was an article done in the situation of doxing, and it was done in the American Mind. It was called Just Dox Theory, in sort of relation to just war theory. And then, you know, with all these factors in mind, I'm just going to read all from the article. With all these factors in mind, it seems clear that many good conservative Christians had correct intuitions when they felt gross about what had transpired and felt vaguely suspicious and disdainful of the man who initiated the doxing. These intuitions are rooted in the very real principles of justice. It is entirely reasonable, therefore, to view the dox as an act of betrayal, and its author at best misguided in his own sense of probity, and likely more invidious in his intentions. I'm going to call BS. You go out of your way to dox somebody for having these kinds of opinions. It's not for anyone's sort of personal opinion. It's usually to attack or to get them fired or to have them banished. And the fact that that article didn't condemn it, and the fact that Rod Dreher went out of his way to have someone have a racially conscious viewpoint with like kinism and sort of the reformed tradition that exists in America, to compare it to the sexual abuse scandals in the Catholic Church, just, throw that out the window. He can go back to the primitive root and just leave us alone. Yeah, like, it really... the primitive root. But yeah, so the essence of the article is that doxing is it's a social mechanism for the leftoid, right? That's
Yeah. So Martin says Scott. I wonder if that's our Martin. Scott Greer has a good Substack post on him. Oh, I gotta read that. No, but the thing is with Rod Dreher is that I think
I hope
the
it's our Martin. He's great.
yeah. No, but I think like the symbol of this is what I wanted to mention. Oh, it is Martin. Okay, there you go.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Subscribe to Martin's newsletter.
Yeah, Martin Cosmicist. Yes. The thing is they get the symbol of what a right wing is in sort of like, and I know evangelicals do this a lot, or rather the punditry ones, not like the real ones on the ground. We have a situation where when it comes to the voting bloc in America, and maybe hopefully in the next few years this will change with Palavra in Canada, is that they get this sort of, they're starting to get the Machiavellianness, the Machiavellian nature of like what it means to actually have a voting bloc that can do things. So with Rod Dreher is a good example. But I wanted to relate to the Duncan victory in, I think, is that guy's name Duncan in Georgia?
Oh, you mean the Warnock versus Walker?
Warnock. Yeah.
Warnock.
Versus Herschel Walker. Yeah, Warnock.
The
Duncan's
Reverend
the other guy.
Warnock,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We all know a lot of those churches, what they mean by Reverend. Right? So, not real, theology. So, Rod Dreher, I'll relate it to Rod Dreher really quickly. So, there's this tweet by that terrible, I hate him so much, that Wahala guy, Ali Wahali, I don't know his stupid name. Wajala, you know who I'm talking about, right? He like works for MSNBC or NBC or whatever. If you can correct me in the chat, his last name is Ollie. He's like one of these big blue check marks. So he had this tweet about all these, really the Christians in America worship white supremacy because they voted for Herschel Walker, who forced his mistresses to have that medical procedure, and terrorized his wife and kids and blah blah blah. But I'm thinking, okay, here's the thing: if you're an evangelical voter in Georgia,
do you mean Ali Velshi?
No, is that his name?
That's the only Ali I know that works at MSNBC.
He may not work at MSNBC, but he's another one of these like, well, yeah. Why Jat Ali? Exactly. Why Jat Ali? I think he's one of these like skintellectuals. But he said that really they worship white supremacy. They don't worship God. They worship their whatever. But I'm thinking, here's the thing though. Okay, and this is where the electorate after Trump, they're getting it. You have a guy, Herschel Walker, who in his personal life is probably not like a real good Christian, whatever. But in terms of policy, who's going to vote to ban that medical procedure in Georgia? Him or Warnock, who's the fake pastor? Because the electorate are starting to get that the optics of it is not working. You know what I mean? Really, when it comes down to this guy is morally impure, but who's going to actually push based right-wing policies like banning this certain medical procedure? Herschel Walker, who has a terrible personal life, or a Warnock who's like this pretend pastor who isn't really a pastor. Now,
the other thing I would also add is that a lot of white voters, primarily around Marjorie Taylor Greene's district, they went out to vote for Kemp, but they did not go out to vote for Herschel Walker. And in fact, to bring up some weaponized autism here, let me zoom in on this picture. This is a map in regards to voter turnout for those who voted for Kemp's reelection but did not vote for Herschel Walker. So that giant blue chunk in the lily white northern part of Georgia, they went out to go vote for they went to vote for Kemp, but they did not go to vote for Herschel Walker, either in the general election or in the runoff. So this map kind of blew up pretty well on Sam Batch's part. This is where autistic nerd data spurgery goes a long way.
Yeah, but I mean, like the sort of, in essence, though, I mean, sometimes you could the left will try to play like you're a hypocrite, blah blah blah, and you don't really vote for your principles because this guy is terrible. But really, it's like when it comes to the actual, like, who is going to vote who's going to create legislation in your interests. I mean, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So Rod Dreher is the example, the uber example of like the sort of like, I pretend to be right wing. I want this moral purity, but it's like when you support actual based world candidates, it's like, no, we can't have that because they're morally impure. It's like these people are essentially just they're the yoke on your neck when it comes to like constantly testing you in this purity spiral. It's like, because really at the end of the day, who cares if a candidate is a failure in his personal life? Is he going to enact based world policies like banning this certain medical procedure? Yeah, probably. So it's like the whole like, I'm going to vote for my principles. That's nonsense. When at the end of, you know what I mean? Rod Dreher is a perfect example of this. Of vote, like every never Trumper is a perfect example of this. Like it's insanity, really. Why you can't get the like why the right wing in America, at least the pundit class, cannot get this example. It's, you know, they're literally voting for the symbol instead of the essence of something. You know what I mean? Like and the left knows this. The left, they voted for corrupt politicians and people that don't exactly that, you know, just basic neoliberals all the time. Like, why do you think they voted for Biden? You know what I mean? Like, why
Well,
did they vote
yeah.
for Creepy Joe?
Well, to go back to their framing, I mean, this is the thing about being oppositional. It's just that by being oppositional, you oppose the framing, but you still play with the framing. And that's sort of the
Yeah.
issue that I get from Rod, but countless other sort of regular, well-known liberals out there. That dare I say face lords, as BAP likes to call them, which to some extent includes ourselves. But
Yeah.
you know, the difference being is that, you know, they accept wholeheartedly the first principles of their framing. They went forward with it, and then they just like, well, you know, we'll get them next time or whatnot. And this is why I did that whole video about amnestic democracy, is because
Yeah.
you have to come up with the next spectacle. You have to find something to justify to get people excited for the next go around, the next election. This is why conservatives have been saying for like as long as I've been alive and as long as I've been paying attention to politics has been, well, you know, we'll get them next time. This next election is going to be the one where we can kick them all out and hear them out loud. You know who also believed that? Every person who voted Republican in 1942 after World War II. Like after we got dragged into the war, the GOP took over the House for the first time in decades. And we were like, all right, we're going to like clear them out. We're going to like reset the New Deal. We're going to like try and get ourselves out of this war as much as humanly possible and focus on winning in the Pacific. And none of that happened. And so, and when someone like, even when the old paleocon right from like the 1980s and 90s is saying like, whoa, we've done this before, guys. And here we are. And what makes it worse is that, well, why is the Christian framing happening more and more? Because I think people are kind of picking onto the fact that it's always racialized. They know that the Republican Party is primarily dominated by a white evangelical voter base. It still doesn't have the necessary sort of, you know, my heckin' wholesome multi-ethnic working class party that a lot of GOP pundits have been slobbering over since 2000. It's not there. And so, you know, they have to go after what they know is the primary target. And it has to be people that, as Obama said, cling to their guns and to their religion. And that's what they're going to do and push for it. And so when people like Stephen Wolfe, who is a mutual of mine, whose book I have recently ordered, because I haven't read it.
Would it be controversial if I had him on Content Minded or if we had him on the show?
I don't think so. I can ask him.
Well, why do they like consider him like a neo Austrian painter? And
because
he's like
he addresses race.
Oh, okay.
He had said that, you know, writ large, he said things like miscegenation is bad and that you really should stick with your kin and things like that. And there have been some critiques from other Reformed Christians that I've seen that sort of ask the question about, you know, like, what is this guy asking for? Is he asking for some kind of Caesareo-papism? Is he asking for something different?
Yeah, that's where the ambiguity is about, like, what he means by Christianity in America. Does he mean, like, us Catholics and Orthos have to go? Or, like, you know?
Yeah, well, that's been that's also my concern is that, you know, I would like the traditional... This is the thing, is that we're not the same men of 1789, right? Yeah. But like the men of 1789 also had laws to ensure that you weren't, you know, martyring Quakers just because they disagreed with you from, say, your Episcopalian likeness or your Catholic likeness. And I think that stuff rather is really important in our regard. And so I think that if we're to get some kind of, say, Christian nationalism, I think by nature of America being predominantly Protestant, it's going to be rather decentralized, but rather uniform in its values, I think, in some ways. I mean, if like the 13 colonies originally had laws against things like blasphemy, against heresy, against, you know, general things that are said in the Bible of, hey, don't do this. And so that I think that the sort of tolerance for other religious practices, whether that be Quakers or
Yeah.
Catholics or Orthodox, whatever, I think that we would probably be fine.
No
I
more
mean,
marrying Irish and Italians by Cody Browning.
but
Yeah, but those wide,
his book is far his book is far more his book is far more rooted in theology and sort of the legal history and such, whereas, for instance, Andrew Torba and Andrew Isker's book is more like, I think that book is primarily directed towards his Gab evangelical sort of boomer con audience, because there's a whole chapter in that book. Let me go see if I can pull it out, where he basically just says, oh, well, if your pastor wasn't happy about, the Dobbs decision, maybe you should just like go to a different church.
Mm-hmm.
So that stuff definitely comes to my mind. But the reason why they went after Wolf in this whole doxing affair is because apparently the gentleman who was doxed, who I will not name, that's just sound practice. And I was glad that American Mind article didn't name the doxed individual. But they did try to go after his Give, Send, Go campaign, which I thought was just heinous.
You know how hard it is to pull a Give, Send, Go? There are literally people that sell like silica powder for cancer on Give, Send, Go. Grip, Send, Glow. Sorry. Grip, I think someone called it Grip, Scam, Glow.
Well, I mean, there's not so many, but there's not too many alternatives if you get taken down from
Give, Send, Glow. I'm not knocking them. Like, the price of people that were canceled getting money for vitally important things and like having people sell like literal snake oil, I think it's a worthy price to pay, in my opinion. Like, I'm not joking, by the way. You need something like Give, Send, Go to like make us anti-fragile, in my opinion. But anyways,
no, you do. And I mean, even Gab wants to do their own version of like Gab Pay to bypass PayPal,
like Patreon.
And you need that. And it was funny because I was watching on Twitter the other day two like rather normie, sort of like mainstream critiquing woke academia. It's like, we just got canceled off Patreon for off-content behavior or off-platform behavior. And I'm like, did you guys learn nothing from Sargon getting banned? Like, what's it been now, 5-6 years ago? Like, we've gone through this. I shouldn't talk that
much about my Patreon, but
well, you should have a backup ready just in case, is what I'm saying. Because eventually all it takes is just a couple of reporting to their own trust and safety team and like tagging some tweets of yours, and they'll do it.
That's why I'm not. But what constitutes that? Because I tend to avoid a lot of stuff on Twitter. So
I don't know. I mean, I think that people have learned their lessons since Patreon stuff. I mean, the good old boys are still on Patreon, and Bog Beef's made it clear. It's like, well, there's only so much that we can't say or do. It doesn't mean that we're not based or edgy. It's just that we have to be careful because of off content, how they monitor it and stuff like that. It's I find it mind-boggling, but they went after Wolf because he's got some basic like based opinions. I mean, he follows half of the dissident right. He follows Martin, you, me, and it's just thinking to myself, well, if he's listening to us in any degree, that's probably going to be shaken the way that they did. So they went after this guy, and a lot of people doubled down on it, and I kind of find it funny because I think the gentleman in question like also knew Rod Dreher's wife or ex-wife.
Yeah.
So there's some personal game involved in this regard. So this kind of illustrates what a weird and messed up state sometimes all of this can be. But also Jay Burden's done a really good sort of breakdown on all this, which I highly recommend. But I think it does illustrate that in terms of spectacle or doxing or accounts coming back, that people have to look for, how can I milk this? Because once you live and this is why I, like, on one hand, I kind of want to do this full time, but on the other hand, I don't want to do it in a way where I'm like, oh, how can I take advantage of somebody's misery and make money off of it to write an article for what constitutes a purpose to double down and call this man, like a sexually abusive priest in comparison. Because to me, that's just egregious.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, that's where we're at in that regard. And
no, but like the thing is though, when it comes to the Christian nationalism thing, it's like it is like a question of like what exactly is like the heart of America currently, and like how do you deal with like the realities of like living in 21st century America. And it's like I feel that is a huge question, and whether like the Christian nationalism thing addresses it. Like people were talking about like, well, it could be co-opted or whatever, it could be like a watered down thing from addressing other important issues. And it's like, yeah, that's true, but I feel like pragmatically, I mean, focusing on faith as opposed to like racial politics. I mean, I'm sort of still on the fence with that question. What is going to like be like, I don't want a black pill. Like a lot of people are saying, well, you have to focus on other things because like, even the right wing in America is not going to markedly not going to be as Christian as it was. But then it's like, I don't know, do you really want to go down that road? Like,
Well,
I don't know.
the American tradition and history, to maybe get a little conceptual, or at the very least cyclical, is that America has always had a history of revival and decline by nature of its of its Protestantism. We've had great revivals and great awakenings before in the country that have like come with, the last wave of it really did kind of come with the evangelical Jerry Falwell stuff in the 1950s
Yeah.
and 60s.
Yeah.
And I mean, you listen to the stuff, like some of his like early sermons, like the stuff that he would say with his like before his congregation in the 60s, you'd think he sounds as based as us. Like, and I mean, I'm sure that he probably was even more to a large extent motivated by his faith. And I certainly can't fault him for that. And I think that this is sort of a way to respond in a lot of ways to what's going on. But the other time too is that, even Dreher just being like, this could be the end of things. And it's just like, I don't think so. I do think that, yes, for the propensity of the right to be more religious in America, or really in any other part of the West, I don't see happening anytime soon, at least in regards to Christianity. But then again, I imagine that at every era after the Great Commission and after Pentecost, that Christians around the world have probably written something similar, thinking that this could be it, this could be the end, that the church is dying, the faith is dying, and the faith goes on, life goes on. But I do think that people are looking for an alternative political solution to things, and especially as evangelicals and Christians writ large in America become infrequently more dispossessed. In this year alone, in 2022, I have witnessed 3 separate major hit pieces, all coordinated at the same time, attacking the 3 largest branches of Christianity, which of course is the Roman Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, and evangelical Americans here in the United States, or just Protestants writ large. And so places like The Atlantic, places like Salon, places like the New York Times, and NPR, all going for it. And to me, it just tells me, well, this is nothing new, right? But I think people are looking for an alternative or a political formula to fight back with it. And so, yes, is there room for this to possibly be contained? Absolutely. I know everyone's got mixed feelings about Torba and Gab and who he throws his lot in with.
Yeah.
And I know that some people take issue with Wolf because, maybe they're not reformed, or maybe they think his solutions are maybe a little too Nietzschean. But for me, it's just like, well, I find this to be people, especially well-hearted and well-meaning Christians, to look for an alternative. Does that mean that there's risk for containment? Oh, absolutely, as there is with any sort of political project. But, I'm reminded of what James Kirkpatrick said on Academic Agent Stream. And I mean, he's well more, versed in the racial stuff than I am. But, he was just like, listen, if you're going to like organize and if you're going to do anything to like survive or like have a community, you can't have it based around politics alone. Because how many times have we witnessed a new group of people with a new political theory like become a hot new thing for a hot minute and then die away? I mean, like the Propertarians, I think, are a really good example. And so I think that unlike political fandoms, Jesus Christ is a little more eternal than that. So I think that there'll be something.
Yeah, but the problem is like Jesus Christ does become a political fandom to a staggering number of people on the political right.
Well, yeah, I mean, the New York Times' weird Catholic Twitter article.
Yeah.
Every time.
Oh, and the political left, yeah.
Yeah, and the political left too. I mean,
well, M brings up a good point. Aesthetics is politics. Really, it's true. I mean, one of the greatest so-so tweets was that aesthetics are a better sign of like the political than any other like theory or anything.
Oh yeah,
because that's just the name of the game, which I think leads into our main topic. But like, yeah, go ahead.
No. The other thing I was going to add to it though on aesthetics, because I was talking about this in my recent video, is that you do need an aesthetic vision. This is why I'm really glad that you and like Matthew the Stoat and this whole art scene is around is that there's an alternative aesthetic vision being provided that isn't kitsch. Not to mention
Yeah.
the literary scene. I mean, I just listening to Isaac Simpson on the Carousel podcast interview our friend T.R. Hudson about his book. And I don't know if you've read it, Geo Automaton. By God, it's probably one of the best pieces of fiction I've read in a long time. And I just was really happy about it. And I think that for political movement, yeah, they, like Frishy Francis says, they exist to abolish themselves. Yeah, Dave did have a good point on that. Is this that, well, we should probably be trying to establish something that will at least allow us to getting very close, not to saying a certain set of words, but you do want something that will be there for your posterity. And that's sort of what makes the fundamental divide between the left and the right is that the right has a teleological position to want to pass something down after them, whether it's family, whether it's civilization, whether it's something of utility. Whereas the left these days, it engages in sort of this heightened, no time preference. I have to eat everything now. Because I mean, even with all great liberal eschatologies, like climate change, for example, it went from we have 50 years to act to 25 years to act. We have like 7 years to act to where now, you have people with a Just Stop Oil or people like bike chaining themselves or bike locking themselves to tennis posts right at Wimbledon saying they have like 1,096 days to act or whatever. And so like even their time preferences for things keep getting faster and faster. And, all of which to me illustrates that that's the fundamental differences. Who wants to leave something behind and who wants to engage in hedonistic self, abolition and elimination. And I think that becomes a big part of our politics today is because even though maybe you and I and most of our audience believe in the first part, right? We want to leave something behind. The medium in which we engage in at all times is the engagement in the platforms that our opposition uses, where we are also sucked into the cycle of eat everything now, right? Where it's the yin yang me, like, oh, it's so over, we're bad,
back.
We're not going to make it, we engage in it just as much.
Create bad society creates grapers create good societies.
Good societies create chuds.
Good societies create chuds. Bad societies create chuds create good societies. Soy jacks create good societies produce soy jacks produce bad societies.
That's the other thing too, is Dime Square and its consequences. Good point, Cody.
But no, I think when it comes to this sort of laundering of perception and reality, when it comes to the political, Nightmare Vision had this great point when he was on Patrick Casey's stream talking about the recent mass casualty fund posting. He was talking about how when you think of like how the media reported like without any evidence, like the motivation that this, and like literally tweets and like the hundreds of thousands of likes about the martyrs for the global LGBTQ barbecue society, like it's the religiosity of it, about how everyone who's ever questioned Drag Time Story Hour is evil and complicit and has blood in their hands, and Chai Radic has blood in her hands. And really, the way that the media reports something and then how it's taken up into legislation years down the road, the whole chain of causal events goes unquestioned, because when you manufacture that perception of something, then it becomes this iron law in liberal democracy that perception eventually translates into reality. But what's funny is that they accuse the right wing of doing this. They accuse the Fox News, Tucker Carlson, like the fact that you talk about this means that it's, it's a lie and it's a distortion. Then eventually you have people voting to like end critical race theory in schools or whatever.
Well, they did that too with the Lives of TikTok lady. Like that tweet where it was like her being on Twitter and her doing her stuff with Fox News
is radicalization.
But it's not just radicalization, but it's going to kill millions of LGBT BBQ people, and it's just like, oh well, if me retweeting your own stuff,
retweeting an Orthodox tribal woman that is married and is a real estate agent that does this
in New York City, who's simply retweeting your own BS back to you, is going to cause a more billion,
because that's what she does. She literally just takes the worst of them and just projects them. Like that's all she does.
She
And
is the
that's
greatest
enough.
mirror. That's it.
Yeah.
She's just a mirror.
Yeah. She's like literally just a real estate agent, Orthodox woman. Like,
I mean, she's
you know,
literally, yeah. I mean, she has her own personal account
she
now
has the
since she's been
politics of
doxxed.
Ben Shapiro, literally. Like, you know, like it's
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
she's. I was about to say she's literally an Orthodox Jewish woman in New
But
York
I think,
City who's just
but
a mirror.
I think like the way that politics is sold in the liberal epoch is a product of the spectacle, in that every political issue is sold as a state of exception and an emergency. It's literally like emergency brain politics. Like we've seen this during the, can I say the C word now?
Oh
Or
yeah,
like the Covidian era, it's idiom. So there you go. The Covidian era, that's how politics was sold. But always like the climate change thing, how we only have 50 years. Like there, if you awaken, you know, awareness of certain practices around the ooming word, that's going to lead to the, you know, trans apocalypse. Like there's always when liberal democracy runs out of exhaustion in terms of the actual the solidity of their ideas. Therefore, the crisis and the state of exception is sold to people. And this is like literally what Giorgio Agamben was talking about, how the climate change thing, the trans apocalypse, if all the chuds suddenly reject our critical race theory, then you're going to have, you know, Austrian painterism in the streets all the time. You know, that's literally their eschatology. It's that if we don't ensure the total verbotening of all of these ways of thinking, then it's going to lead to our you know, mass redacting or whatever. And same with climate change, and it's always that same pattern of thought. And the whole, you know, what happened at the club the other week, like that's another highlighting of, while if we don't think of these things in explicit eschatological and theological terms, and now I, you know, of course, the whole thing that happened recently with Ye, like it's the same pattern. It's like if you awaken the chuds to this thing, then it's like that's going to like negate our end of history project, because end of history ushers in the rapture of the universal state. And so therefore all politics on the political left, and the political right does have this as well, only with political right it's like demographics, or it's like whatever, like it's like, you know, moral politics of Christians in America, that if, you know, Bill O'Reilly sold this with the war on Christmas, and you know, we have this
notice
own,
how
like,
that's disappeared.
yeah, because now it's the demographic apocalypse that's replaced that thinking. So like literally all politics in the, you know, epoch of like liberal modernity is eschatological, because it's tied in so fundamentally with the spectacle. And I can even read this part. You know, Debord, he says like there's no difference between the spectacle and the real. They are
Yeah.
bleeding into each other. And so therefore when it comes to the eschatology of the liberal, you know, which is essentially like post-Christian heresy, you could say, therefore all politics will reflect that. And even the political right, we're not immune to this, because the way that we talk about, especially from 2017 onwards, when people started blackpilling on Trump, when like the original alt-right was like packing it in, they were like, you know, oh, I guess it's like, I guess white people in America, we're done for. And it's like, there you go. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, I think, yeah, I'm just rambling right now, but you know what I mean? Like, it's, we're not immune to this way of thinking.
No, I mean, we get sucked into it all the time, and I mean that's the thing, right? Is that so many people get told to touch grass,
yeah,
or to log off or whatever. And I mean, I know people who take breaks. I mean, we were just talking about this in a GC I'm in about, hey, did this person get their account suspended, or did they deactivate?
yeah.
He's like, oh no, he's just taking a break. He deactivated. And it's like, oh, okay. You know, like people need that. And I mean, because if not, you get sucked into, and just like Debord says, where like the spectacle and reality, they blend in together. And that's why so many of us live in sort of the Lippmann pseudo reality, or I think nowadays hyper reality is the better word to use, where it's like, well, you know, my real life gets blended in with the fact that I'm online, and how I perceive the world is based upon what I see on Twitter, and I'm going to have a reflection of that. And it becomes really, really hard to sort of differentiate the fact that, you know, most people are not going to view the world in the same lens that maybe you and your mutuals do.
Right.
And that's just by nature of either not being on the platform, or just having a totally different you know, online social life than you do.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes even I plan to do a solo stream on this. It's just like, it's a bizarre thing to think about that more people know me as this, Clemens von Metternich frog character than I do in real life, which on one hand is perfectly fine because I don't know if I could ever comprehend the fact that like 11,000, 12,000 some odd people know who the hell I am IRL versus, the frog. But what I think DeBoard is absolutely right, though, is that we ourselves on the right kind of get pulled into the spectacle. Although I think DeBoard and the idea that it's really just this the marketplace, right, having assessed and ascended from sovereignty. I mean, so much of our narratives, so much of what gets hyped up in the media, like we know better because we know that this isn't for profit. This is for power. Why on earth do we care that Brittany Griner is trending? And I mean,
Yeah.
and the Saudi Arabians are really happy to have an arms dealer that they could potentially use in their ongoing proxy war with Iran that the Russians have no problem probably kipping over to. But, neither here nor there.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he'll supply Iran now because if Russia and Iran are
that's
together.
probably the case. I mean,
yeah.
But it's funny that the Saudis brokered this deal. That's the interesting part, in my opinion. But and even hearing the U.S. deny it is funny.
Well, he used to supply to both sides, so that's probably why.
Well, yeah, I mean, was he around and played a large role in sort of like more or less profiting and sending like Soviet surplus
yes.
to the Soviets and the okay, all right.
Yeah, all sides of the Congo War. All sides of he supplied in the Balkans, like to both Bosnians and Serbians. So I think he was also integral to like the Russia's like secret support of Serbia at the time. So, but he also supplied to Bosnia and everyone in the he just flooded the Congo with weapons. Pretty much.
Yeah,
so.
And I mean, I don't have much to say about this other than what I said earlier today with just my Norm Macdonald posting. Brittany Griner is on her way home to the United States. When asked about this diplomatic event in the backdrop of the ongoing war in Ukraine, President Putin said, "All this for a black guy."
Yeah.
So
the Norm Macdonald. Yeah. There's this quote that DeBoard talks about ideology. He talks about Lenin because of course situationists they were against Stalin. He was of course the situationists were against Stalin because he was basically just a totalitarian dictator. So here it goes. Revolutionary ideology, the coherence of the separate, of which Leninism represented the greatest voluntaristic attempt. Because of course DeBoard they were all anarchists, right? But they were Marxoid anarchists. Supervising a reality which rejects it, which Stalinism returns to its truth and incoherence. So, Stalin was a mishmash of these, post-revolutionary ideologies, which developed into, Stalinist, Soviet totalitarianism. At that point, ideology is no longer a weapon, but a goal. The lie which is no longer challenged becomes lunacy. Reality as well as the goal dissolves in the totalitarian ideological proclamation. All it says is all there is. This is the local primitivism of the spectacle, whose role it nevertheless is essential in the development of the world spectacle. The ideology which is materialized in this context has not economically transformed the world as has capitalism, which reached the stage of abundance. It has merely transformed perception by the means of the police. So really, when it comes down to it, ideology in its form as a sort of solid state picture is really the goal. It's sort of the supplement. It's not the real. The real, when it comes to, and I know like the Marxists, they always do this, the economic conditions, that doesn't transform. Because Stalinism was like, in a way, you could say just as like brutal and capitalistic in certain regards as, or even nationalistic, as opposed to these ideologically anarchistic, Trotskyite leftoid shitlibs. So it's like to them, Stalin was just as brutal as any, capitalist propped up dictator, because Stalin was like flirting with nationalism and flirting with like, not the world, world workers unite. He really didn't want to transition to the stateless society.
No, I mean, he
really,
literally focused it on an internal
yeah,
nationalistic ethnic
yeah,
lens to where certain ethnic groups were purged from, major parts of the,
yeah,
Soviet Politburo, and he focused on sort of maintaining a sort of Stalinist ethnic vision for what Russia as the new Soviet man would look
exactly,
like.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
the, workers of the world unite into my heckin' wholesome, super diverse, luxury, automated gay space communism. It
yeah,
was
yeah, solar punk
yeah,
space,
it's,
yeah,
the Chobani solar punk commercial, like, that's not what, Stalin had wanted, and, I mean,
no,
that's sort of fundamentally happens with any sort of society, is that you do need sort of to operate on the ethnos of it all to work,
right,
and I mean, even now, and this is the thing that I find so interesting looking back on Debord, because, again, I've read way more French
mm,
guys than I'd like to admit for my time in university, but I mean, even in the Situationist Manifesto, right, Debord had always called official culture as the rigged game, although he called it more capitalist conservative powers would
yeah,
ever forbid subversive ideas to have direct access to the public discourse. When really, I mean, here's the thing: when you win, right, the so-called new left, or have taken sort of over. Or even just old style liberalism has sort of maintained its position.
yeah,
The right wing, and this is where I find that article by Jeff Schollenberger to be so interesting about the right wing using critical theory as a tool,
hmm,
is that, well, by nature of being dissidents, or by nature of wanting things to be better, any sensible individual that wants to improve the conditions of their society, i.e., we don't want labor to be constantly cheapened by large corporations, because immigration devalues the national idea and makes things worse at home for societal cohesion. Secondly, we don't want all of our young men addicted to pornography or watch their sperm counts drop to zero, to where by 2045, apparently most human beings are going to need assistance in reproduction.
oh boy,
And, maybe we
just
should do
like
something about it. And it's just like, oh, well, what are you? Some kind of revolutionary, some kind of leftist? And well, to some extent, a lot of the new left that is still around either became paleocons in the
yeah.
1980s, and we're sort of what's left of them in a lot of respect. So I think that's why there's been such a large overlap and
Yeah, all
flirtation.
like the guy that wrote Everything Solid Melts into Air, that's basically just like a conservative tome nowadays. It's like the
Yeah, I know.
curmudgeon core.
And so I think that's
Yeah.
why you see so much overlap with like old style Marxoids than you do with maybe more traditional right wingers, is because, oh, well, we are kind of cribbing a lot of their work. No wonder why they want to talk to us. Then they get really disgusted when maybe we don't
Yeah.
want to talk to Malcolm.
But but it's funny because Debord wrote this in the 50s or
58.
yeah, yeah, but then it was reprinted in the 80s. But he predicted the line that a lot of the post left people say, which is that material conditions don't change when it comes to leftoid politics. It's just the flavor of those material conditions through the spectacle of like woke politics. They change, not the actual like material conditions, right? Like Debord basically predicted this in the 50s. He's saying that like really, and of course he was critiquing Stalinism. Like here in the next page over, he talks about like how Stalin the spectacle can only be like perception can only change because of absolute terror. And Stalin was just like a bureaucrat at heart. He's a bureaucrat is impossible, since the official truth of the bureaucracy is that it does not exist. Thus, every bureaucrat depends absolutely on the central guarantee of the ideology, which recognizes the collective participation of the socialist power of all the bureaucrats. It does not annihilate. If all the bureaucrats taken together decide everything, the coherence of their own class can be assured only by the connection and concentration of their terrorist power in a single person. In this person resides the only practical truth of the falsehood and power. So, same with the managerial state, which in the sense of that they want to make you think that it doesn't exist, that there's not ideology there, but ideology becomes the only coherent factor in this sort of anarchic tyrannical society, right? Like we're seeing this now. And so when you have people like, I managed to ratio Joyce Carol Oates, who says this very like mid 2000s talking point about, well, in Canada, there's no such thing as ideology. All these issues are basically decided by the state, and that's a good thing because they're the perfect end of history society, whether it comes to the MAID program or that other medical procedure that happens at the beginning of life. It's like, this impersonal managerial state has no ideology, but that in a sense is ideological because then it becomes like this guarantee of the cohesion of that managerial state itself, right? So it works almost in opposition to that Stalinistic mandate where ideology becomes the only coherent force, because Stalin used to liquidate bureaucrats all the time, right? So you really couldn't tell who is at the, who is in ideological good standing. Stalin was the ultimate guarantee of that. You know what I mean? So now we have the opposite. We no longer have a Stalin, but we have a spectacle-driven society that tells us that there's no such thing as ideology. There's only culture, and there's only the spectacle itself, even though ideology is still in the background. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it becomes two things. One, it operates
because political theology, empire, exactly. Sorry,
I was about to mention that. Yeah, the first, it becomes two things. One, political theology, but two, it creates the ultimate mask for power.
Yes.
If you get everyone caught up in the spectacle in which it's all about culture, it's all about ideology, or it's all about these ideas, it's all about the next, Austrian painter, or the next Stalin, or the next Mao, then you're forever going to be ruled by those guys, and you're forever going to be ruled by the culture that was, that inculcated that entire generation, which happened almost 70, 80 years ago. And so we're still living sort of, like I've been jokingly saying that, liberal hauntology is just the ghost of the Austrian painter. And I do think that a lot of that's, it is. But the thing
I was explaining this to my best friend last night in real life. He was watching the Gavin interview with Yi, and I'm like, you have to realize that the Owen Cyclops tweet where you said like everything from the toothpaste you buy to the shoes you wear to the person you vote for is informed by this particular form of theology that came about from World War II. So
yeah. And I mean, but what comes out of this, right, is that someone was talking about, I was like, well, now that the left burns free speech signs in Berkeley, and this is, again, it's a mask about power, because in their viewpoint, it's always perpetual revolution. It's always about the idea that, no, they're not in charge, despite the fact that so many of your champagne socialists or your bread tubers or your radical, edgy, anarcho-communist or anarcho-syndicalist guys inadvertently will serve the regime, or they will tell you to wipe the certain fluids off of your mouth and just vote blue no matter who, and go from there, because that's their idea of maintaining power, or to best preserve the system from the evil resurrection of, before we reenact the 2014 movie Guess Who's Back. That's what they fear. Whereas nowadays they'll burn free speech signs because they themselves, in sort of in a Debordian sense, they're the ones in power, but they don't want free speech because they think conservative ideas of simply saying a man is a man and a woman is a woman is subversive and a threat to the power structure, because they are in charge. And they won't ever tell you that, despite the fact that the reigning political theology in Berkeley today is anathema to the ideology 100 years ago at Berkeley University. And I think that's a really important thing for us to note. And so I'm not saying that, we're the new leftists or whatnot. I'm simply saying that by nature of being out of power, a lot of guys on the right, I do think, take sort of a revolutionary framing to it. And I'm not saying that that's 100% bad, because there's a lot of great tools and theory in there for us to effectively use, because I do think the right gets caught up in the spectacle of things and doesn't recognize what it does. And the professional right, Con Inc., does this exceptionally well. One, because it's a great grift to be oppositional. And two, it's really great to write your weekly hit piece on the current thing and never do anything else about it, because, well, that would upset the money-making business you've got going there, which is why people can look at electoral autopsies, they can look at random events, but they have to keep the system going because they're a part of it. Whether they want to admit it or not, they are. It's the same reason why you're not going to see anyone really give a lot of serious praise, to instance, to say Stephen Wolfe by anybody in Congress. It's the same reason why the whole spectacle of Yi is not going to go anywhere, because the political theology in which rules everything is not going to allow ideas that have been so socialized now for at least 3 generations to be spoken against, because let that be anathema.
I think like culturally it'll do something though, because like, in a sense, like these ideas have been around in like, hip hop community for a while now, even like Chuck D talked about it. But I think like Yi is a very particular, like there is this video, it was like 3 hours long, that Joel shared, Joel Davis, where it was like they were theory selling over this smaller channel but I found it very interesting their theory selling over Yi being like the liminal man that comes about at like, being someone who's like at the top of like pop culture. Um, it's very interesting, I think, culturally, but politically, of course. I mean, it's obviously a non-starter that's never going to. I mean, it'll take. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the operational programming of like the Western society is never going to tolerate this
No,
type of thinking ever.
it won't.
So
And I mean,
yeah,
um,
but I don't want
and
to counter signal it to. I don't know who I'm going to piss off more
oh,
by
well,
talking about this.
you're gonna piss off somebody regardless. I've
Yeah,
just come to that conclusion, and I
exactly.
mean
Yeah,
that's the nature of it all. And I think Martin had a good point. It's just like you're not going to be breaking down um these things overnight, and the
no,
likelihood that you are, especially with America and its own political position, right? With whether it's the famous 2009 book, The Israel Lobby, or just America's own issues with like say
you know
Schofield
why?
and the
Because
rest.
with the follow up question, like with the Gavin interview, right? Like the follow up question being, "What are you going to do about it?" is always like the most. That's like the immediate like stoppage of like any political discourse, because when it comes to like the actual like implementation of like, okay, what does this all mean politically, what does it translate into, that's always going to be a dead end unless you're like going out there and like like being whatever, like what I'm trying to like coach it in like
Yeah,
analytical
yeah, no,
terms.
I understand.
Yeah,
But I mean, even then, right? This is
even
like what.
just like it doesn't even have to be this particular group of people. It could be any group of people. It could be like non-Christians. If you're going like by the Christian nationalism thing, how are you going to make sure that only Christians have positions of power in America without like some kind of like massive change to like what America has been for the past 100 years? It doesn't have to be one particular racial group or whatever, or ethnic group. It's like, okay, how you guarantee that like the founding, like the sort of founding faith of America, that they're the ones guiding
Well, isn't this
policy.
just the basic nature of Yarvin's the story, the two-story state? I mean,
Yeah,
this has been the constant battle of everything that we've witnessed. I think, especially since the quote unquote like the Great Awakening, that
right.
people like to say, has been this battle over two consequent ideas. One has had the very successful long march through the institutions
Yes,
since the 1930s and onward to today, where it became very public and very well known, where it kind of became mask off, where Barack Obama would usher in this great transformation of the country. Lord knows that he did. And so, what did you see? You saw two groups of people throughout 2020 push themselves into directions to where one, which venerates the old style tradition of the sacred and hallowed ground of our institutions,
mhm,
which is traditionally the normie conservative Trump voting right, versus those that must hold on to power because the very people that they're so afraid of are the ones that built it in the first place. And they know that. Every
right.
time I deal with these, like I read lefty tweets or I see people post or like screen cap stuff, everything that I see is always in the same style of James Baldwin recognizing that they are lesser. And I think that there's a big fundamental insecurity aspect that comes into it. That's why
Oh
they
yeah,
must rule with an iron fist, because they do know where they belong, and it's not at the top. But hey,
yeah. It's
that's
it's
how
an
it works.
inverted hierarchy, more.
It is, and it is. And so what did we see? Well, on a certain day in January in 2021, we saw a bunch of people that got fed up with the fact that they were
Chuds.
blatantly robbed, and they decided to go do something about it. But unlike their, enemies that had occurred throughout all of summer of 2020, they didn't burn anything down. Most of them stayed inside
It was a
the
photo op.
velvet stands and railings inside of the Capitol, building, and they stayed inside the lines. They took some
But
pictures.
the way it was sold was like, this is like they were about to round people up and like redact
No, and
them.
they treated it like we were storming the Bastille, and that
Yeah,
someone was going to take Nancy Pelosi's and put them on a spike, and that didn't happen. And so, to me, it really does illustrate a lot of the fact that that's um, where we're at. Is that one side will respect, and I think it does take advantage, the left does take advantage of sort of the right's political theology in a lot of ways,
yeah.
because even as someone who is so disaffected and dissatisfied with how the democratic process works, I did a video on this a while back where I just sort of talked about the power of myth, because boy oh boy, 18-year-old me getting to participate as an elections judge and help people run elections and do
Whoa.
stuff like that, I thought that was the coolest thing on God's green earth, and I thought I got to be a
I'm
part of the great.
helping.
Yeah, I know. It was.
Ralph Wiggum, I'm helping.
Basically, and I was excited over the fact that, oh, this is a part of the American democratic process that has been going on for like 2 centuries, and I get to be a part of it.
Yeah.
I don't think that way anymore now, but it does illustrate that socialization is innately powerful. And if you're not, say, on this side of on the political spectrum or wherever what you want to call it, it's going to be very hard to break that socialization and to break that political theology, because unless you have your own sort of road to Damascus moment where someone tells you, hey, the stuff that you're doing, persecution, belief, whatever, is wrong, then it's going to be very hard to come to the other side, which is why I don't find the red pilling the normie strategy all that available. But I do think that telling people that, hey, you want to like raise your kids and you don't want them on like Lupron or whatever while they go to school. Yeah, you're a pretty regular person, and you're pretty sensible. You're pretty normal. You're grounded.
Yeah. But if anything, I think with Yi, it probably will, like, it won't red pill the normies, but I think the response to him will make people see that this is like a huge joke, and like, why are we freaking out over anti-whatism? Like, it's not a big deal. Like, I think that's probably the best outcome of this, is that it will make normies, like, it will desensitize them to like this, you know what I mean?
Well,
It'll
yeah.
desensitize them to like freaking out about like any mentioning
But
of race or whatever.
I mean, I'm reading a book right now, and I'm going to be going over this with Dimes, but it's called "What Went Wrong: The Creation and the Collapse of the Black-Jewish Alliance" by Murray Friedman.
Oh yeah,
and it's a history from like the 1920s until like the 1990s about sort of that relationship. And this isn't the first time that this has happened. So I think once again, by nature of our generation not having, say, the cultural memory or a concept of history that goes back further than maybe 5 or 10 years before we were born, outside of maybe some raw bones, skeletal understanding of how history works, that we kind of forget that these sort of spectacles have taken place before, and that they'll probably happen again. And so I don't think you're going to wake up anybody.
Yeah. Like there is a critique.
Although they certainly have overplayed their cards. Let's not get ourselves here. That clip with the guy, the more conservative organization against the ADL. Well,
he's like suing Greenblatt's, the guy.
Even Greenblatt on that radio show.
Oh, Vlad, yeah. No, but there's this other conservative, like that Nation Middle East lobby group that hates the ADL. Like, they despise them because they're libs, like that. They're like boomers, like only like boomer people of that generation, of that particular ethnicity, like, that Nation Middle East. I forget the exact group. It's like Z Words of America, that group. They hate the ADL. But anyways, so there is like that. But what I think is that when it comes down to the response of it, it's certainly interesting. It certainly is a performance piece, but there is a good critique that Nightmare Vision made, which is it's always going to be a cultural thing within the African American community, and they critique it as like, these people are record producers and so forth, and they're the ones that control, like, the talent and the hard work of Black people in America, but it's never going to be like a political consciousness for obvious reasons. And that's why they sort of have given more leeway to, African Americans within the entertainment industry talking about like these particular group of people. And so, certainly not if if it was a white entertainer, they would never allow that to happen. But it is certainly interesting, though, even if it is just a cultural W, it's like, I don't know. It's just, I feel like I'm scared the more we talk about this, the more that,
well,
get
I will simply say that, like, by simply having a conversation about it, regardless of how it plays out, where it's another participation of the spectacle.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is a spectacle, but I think like sometimes, and I said this about the 2016 people and all that they've produced, like certain, that sometimes a counter spectacle is in a sense the best that we can hope for. And that, you know what I mean? That whatever happens, however much they crush it, it's, but then again, I shouldn't say that, because sometimes these counter spectacles can devolve into just childish nonsense. We've seen that with like, you know, IRL streamers or whatever. Like it's just, you know what I mean? Like I think the counter spectacle has to be something that can produce meaningful cultural change rather than like, oh, this is cool, this is based, we're trolling the libs.
Well,
You know,
this is why I find when we engage in spectacle, like we're going to own the libs, or I'm going to upload another SJW owned compilation, like
yeah, like that,
right? Like but it's performative, and when you make money off of it, yes, you kind of have to continue the performance, and you self-reify the spectacle itself in the same way that like when people get banned, right, from say Twitter or YouTube or Patreon, you take a hit. And the people that follow with you are typically your most hardcore parasocial fans that are willing to donate and give you money to support your project. And so what do? You have to keep up the spectacle. You have to keep it up and going. That's why, in a lot of ways, I said this in this video earlier on Monday, was just like, well, what ends up happening with the catch-all label of the dissident right, because we don't use the other label anymore for obvious reasons, because it died in a certain place in Virginia, 5 years ago. But what do we become? We literally turn into a chimp in captivity. We're either throwing our own feces at one another, or we're all just, engaging in masturbatory behavior. And
I don't know if I should mention that guy, but that destroyed it. But you know what he said? The Harry Do? Did you watch that interview with
the well-coiffed gentleman?
The well-coiffed gentleman. He said that this is great because this is going to destroy Christianity in America more than anything I could have hoped to achieve. And I'm like, wow, that's incredible. Like, and so if you're like, here's one thing I will say to the AF people, if they're listening, don't trust the coiffed gentleman, because that's what his intention is. If you truly are a believing Christian and you want Christianity restored in America, you should get away from that guy as fast as possible, because that's what he believes. He believes that this is going to destroy Christianity in America. So there you go. That's my warning to people that are, sympathetic to the Christian cause. He said that he said that this whole spectacle is going to destroy the perception of Christianity in America more than anything. So,
yeah. Well, people to stay my distance too, same as always. So that's all that it's here for. But at the same time, right? People will take advantage of any spectacle and put it in a way that they want for getting back at people, or to enact revenge, or to cite things like that. And I think that it's the same reason why, when it comes to like the war right now that's happening, like I was saying, well, the best I can do is do second order impact and consequence, or maybe do a deep dive on one specific industry or whatnot, because you're going to get lost in the spectacle of propaganda, people using video game footage or taking photos and editing them that were taken like 5 or 6 years ago, and not doing anything else in there. And the fact that happens so often and so daily, not just in the context of the war itself, but in virtually everything else that we do. Again, it's the same reason why people are making a big spectacle over the OpenAI GPT-3 chatbot thing, because, oh, well, look at what this AI chat thing can do. And I was just like, we also had the same conversation about chatbots and deepfakes prior to the 2020 election. And during the 2020 election, it was only used once, and they just changed the name of the location on the back of the video, rather than what Biden was saying or his face or anything. So I do think we're going to see a lot of things come to pass where their impact are kind of overstated, because we treat things like shiny new bauble. But who knows? Because there's some stuff that GPT-3 thing can do really well, which is like write a boilerplate general lease agreement or things like that. So I do think it'll be rather interesting to see what comes out of it. But right now, I think, again, it's another bit of the spectacle that we're going to go on. But Colin is saying that it can actually write code. I've been using it to accelerate my work as a developer. Well, maybe it's got some practical purpose. But I don't think it'll. To me, I kind of think that maybe it's right now a monkey in the typewriter type situation.
Yeah. But monkey in the typewriter situation.
1,000 monkeys, typewriters, Shakespeare.
It was the best of times. It was the blurst of times.
We're getting there, real close, I think.
Oh man, but. Yeah. But I think, I don't know, it is very like crazy, like even talking about these type of things, like what happened. It's just like, I don't know. I just it's very interesting the times that we're living in, how like political alignments are changing, and how like it seems that ideology is just going through a meat grinder right now. And really, like, when it comes to the recognition that we live in a spectacle driven society and what that entails, it is like, in some ways, like, this is a return to like the meta political, in a way, like what is above politics, so it's, yeah.
I think that's been the biggest conversation is what steps above or steps over. And I think people are looking for some way to escape the minutia of it all. I mean, Lord knows I am. I've been telling people that I think Turnip had put up a poll a while back. It's like, do you feel burnt out? Are you consuming less? And I said, well, I don't feel burnt out, but I'm consuming less for this pure purpose of just trying to read more. So I'm not outsourcing my judgment, whether moral, ideological, political, to other people, because I should probably take the time to be well read up on things myself. That way I'm not trying to,
Yeah.
trust this person that I may or may not know well enough to say, oh, I agree with that take, because I haven't, because people are busy, right? We're not always going to have people available to us to have the correct take on all things, right? Like there are some times where I think, I agree with this person's take, but I'm not so sure about like this one position, right? And like that helps to actually read it or to learn it. But I don't feel burnt out. I still think that there's a lot of great people right out there writing and doing things, and I like the direction that the Old Glory Club is going to go into, because we're planning on mutual aid in the future, and in 2023 the LLC will expand in a lot of ways, and I'm very happy about what that's going to become. But at the same time, like, I also have to do a lot of work myself, and this is why I kind of find the lefty position to be funny sometimes, where it's just like, well, you have to do the work, and I'm like, well, yeah, you kind of do, and it can't be spent all the time online, as always. That's been my big project of 2022, is trying to formulate strategies to take oneself out of the digital into the real. So most of my time has been like going to my county GOP meeting, printing out people's articles, whether it's Morgoth's or Orrin McIntyre's, and just being like, hey, there's other ways to think about politics than just the traditional go get them next time type of attitude. And that's the thing that really matters.
Yeah. And that's, well, I don't know. I mean, how the degree to which we can touch grass nowadays is sort of it's complicated. I feel it's complicated because so much of our experiences are mediated by what we do here that anyways, moving on.
Well, that's true. I mean, so much of our and that's
the thing. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the clip where he says it, actually. It's bothering me. But he did say, I did watch this clip where he was in a Twitter space that got recorded, where he said, like, this is gonna, like, Yi going out there and talking about Christian nationalism, that's actually gonna, like, body Christianity in America. It's like, oh my God, like it's something else, man. It's something else. But anyways.
But yeah, no, I think that stuff goes a long way to how do you balance it out, because we are engaging the same platforms that melt our attention spans, take our focus on the things in front of us, and we want to engage with the audience. And I think that anyone that's got a platform that people listen to, they're going to want to stay on it more, because either for money or for attention, or because it's fun to engage in the friend simulator. It's definitely it's definitely an issue, because I think someone had done the study that they had published where, if you have over a few thousand followers, you're already in like the top 20% of like Twitter's user base in terms of content that gets generated and what gets put out there. And to me, it's just like, wow, like that it does really tell you the degree in which how small an organization or a group, or even a group chat, right, with even some big posters or smaller accounts, can actually put an impact on what gets talked about and what can get people riled up on the trending tab for a day. And it does illustrate that, oh, well, this is very much a part of, like, like the board said, like the real and the spectacle bleed through together. And we're stuck in that we're stuck in the simulation in a lot of ways. And I think that's been I think that would be one of the bigger problems going forward, is how do you maintain it? And I mean, that's the whole point of James Polis's book, right? About being human in the digital age, because like we live in a sea and we're surrounded by a digital swarm of, those ready to bite and eat you alive. And so what maintains your humanity in the face of things that will overwhelmingly, say, oh, you're gay for this, you're not actually believing, you're not actually doing this, you're counter signaling, blah, 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 blah. And I think going forward, that will be one of the bigger challenges in the end of it all, is just feeling like, well, who stays human in the end, or who becomes a total apathetic monster? And
Yeah.
I think that's going to be one of the bigger things that comes out of the society of the current thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And oh, sorry, I believe the interview was on the Stardust channel, whatever. What are they called? Politically Provoked. But it is interesting how I think, like, when it comes to even our faith, like, we are, like, it is transformed, the way it's transmitted, the way that it's expressed, it is, like, transformed by the spectacle itself. And I think, like, that's very it's very interesting when you talk about, like, the balance between eternal principles and the sort of hypermodern condition, and how those things intersect with each other, and how, like, people that talk like, well, it's going to transform us into, like, a new expression of what Christianity is, or whatever, even what Islam is in the modern world, by the use of the internet, and how, memetics are spread and so forth. And it's and some people say that, well, really, faith has no place anymore because people don't believe in the same way. And it's very interesting. It's very interesting. I mean, in the sense, you want to hold on to these eternal principles, but then at the same time, it's like, really, the way in which life has manifested itself, in the way that we relate to each other, in the way that we, share our sort of mutual perceptions of reality itself. I mean, this is ultimately going to transform what we believe in general, whether it's politics or faith or our sense of identity. And so it's very interesting to look at, like, these sort of newer manifestations of, belief and faith and politics in the society and the age that we live in. And it's almost like, it's a train that you can't stop, in a sense, and it's very hard to reconcile with. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know where I'm going with this thought, but I'm just.
I think you're absolutely right. Is that I think in a lot of ways, social media, the digital, there's some sacramentality to it. It's both a platform in which you can physically exist in and walk through and engage with other people.
Yeah.
But it's also a drug. It's a mind-altering drug. And we know this because why do companies like Facebook or Twitter or Meta or whatever it's called now, right? Like, why do they hire a bunch of, like, a bunch of neuroscientists and a bunch of, like, evolutionary psychologists? And it's to make their algorithms more gamified, more addictive. And, for what, and video games now are heavily monetized. It's pay to win in a lot of that instances. You have microtransactions, to where everything is now, life as a service. And social media, right? If it's free, then that means you're the product, your metadata, all that jazz, right?
Yeah.
And so we're engaging in a drug that allows us to walk and engage in this sort of digital astral plane, that allows us to talk to strangers. Like, I would have never known who the hell you were if I didn't get on Twitter and we interacted. Your show wouldn't exist. But at the same time, it has fundamentally altered my perception in the way that I view the world. And I have to always, take the time to balance, like, well, am I always setting the best example that I could be? Am I living up to the principles that I believe in as a human being? Like, for example, and I'll just co it off. Like, Academic Agent the other day had made some tweet about why he hates Zoomers. And
did he? Oh,
yeah,
Academic Agent hates Zoomers? What?
Oh, well, he hates the young in general.
Yeah.
I remember last year I said it was my birthday in the group chat that I'm in with him, and he had said, "Oh, how old are you?" And I said, "Oh, I turned 26 last year." And he says, "Oh, I have less respect for you. You should be older." And
the Xennials.
But he put it out there, and he said, "Why?" And then someone had replied, and he says, "Well, I don't want to discount all Zoomers. There are people like Jack." He said, "At Jaybird and at myself on Twitter." And I just sort of joking, in my perception, I jokingly replied, "Don't use that fucking label with me." And I said it jokingly, and I didn't think anything out of it or anything like that. And then all of a sudden, I get a reply back from him saying, like, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I apologize. Blah, blah, blah. I like your work." And I realized to myself, oh, I am saying it in a way that I thought it in a joking fashion, but it came off like me being a real bastard. And so I just
Yeah.
replied openly, and I just apologized, and I had said, "Hey, look, it's not how I meant it," and just apologized open for anyone to find on Twitter. And I was like, that really ate at me, because it's just like that's not the principle that I should be living up to. But it's so easy to be like, "Lol, fuck you" on Twitter, and I think that really makes it easy to create a sense of disassociation between who you are in real life and who you are online. But the problem is that there is no real separation. They bleed through. The platforms that you engage on, the spectacles that you partake in or enjoy, all will eventually bleed through and affect who you are as a person in the real world. So, you getting upset or blackpilled over something on Twitter and things like that,
Yeah.
it will always bleed back to how you are in your relationship to others. And what makes it even worse nowadays is that more people in America, and I can only speak for it because that's the article I was reading, is that more people in America are spending their time alone, more hours per week alone than they have been with any other people. Half of millennials say that they don't even have like a one or two really close best friends. And so you're now perpetually engaged, where you have sold yourself to the platform. You've sold yourself to this digital space. And because that's the only place left to engage in, because the powers that be have fundamentally said real world human existence is no more. Small businesses closed, churches closed. I don't know how people go out and really try and date anymore, because the ideas of going out to the bar or asking the cute girl out at the counter has changed, where everything is done with a layer of distance and computer mediated communication. And so in turn, we live in a society of the current thing, and we live in a society of the spectacle, because the spectacle is the only thing that gives a lot of people meaning anymore. And that's the most terrifying thing about all of it. All politics, all media, all spectacle, all current things, all discourses are all based around, well, what are my preferences? Can I build community off those online preferences? And at the end of the day, maybe someone will call out my name. Maybe someone will reply to me and say, good point. Or I can engage with them and try and ratio them. And so real love, real humanity has an imperfect transference into the digital. And so, I mean, here you are, and here we are in a lot of ways. And I think that that's going to be the real challenge for people, regardless of religious tradition, is, well, how do you maintain your semblance of humanity and what you believe in? Because it was funny, like I'm planning to have a dinner with a friend of mine in the area that we basket weaved with earlier. And he's a devout traditionalist Hindu. And like we complain about a lot of the same things on Twitter with politics, just in respect to our own countries. And, I'll say something and I'll be like, oh, Lord willing. And then I'll scroll through his tweets and he'll say something and I'll be like, God's willing, because polytheistic religion. And I just think to myself, well, it's really hard. I'd imagine that ebb and flow of maintaining the digital with your beliefs and whatnot. And even I'm just as much a victim to it, to where I kind of want to stream about it in full, because in a society where we are, the current thing, and I'm going to try and stop rambling for a bit, is that, at what point am I more the projection I put out than I am the person on the ground? And I think that that's always been the balance.
Yeah. And I think like the work, like, you have to like study like the early pioneers of the internet that sort of predicted all of this. Like I know the recent article that Catherine put out cites one book that I believe you could find for free. She like links to it, and like the work of other like people that were on the early internet that basically predicted how your own sense of subjectivity would be extrapolated into an online medium. It's almost as if like the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking of like when me and the Art of Darkness podcast, when we did that like 5 hours on Anais Nin, and how like she basically approached her life as like a huge work of like blending like diary entryism with fiction, and how like she basically created like, I mean, she was a notorious pathological liar, but in a sense, it's like we have all become like a diarist that writes a theory fiction about their own life. And it's like the blending of what actual real life events are and also a narrative that you tell about your own life. That's like, in a way, she was a pioneer of that. And I think that all like dramatic diarists that, they're basically their literary output is like their own life. You know, they kind of always do that. You have to like hem things up. Like even people that do story time on YouTube, it's like that's what basically it is. It's like, you know, do you think those stories are real? You know, but people are doing this nowadays in general. And so when it comes to the way that you create this narrative, even if you're an anon in the online world, it's like that's almost in a sense you writing this dramatic narrative about narrativization about your own life. So for example, I'm gonna roll up the comments here. By Seth Watson, real love can't be transferred digitally. Well, I disagree with you, because there are a lot of people who like LARP love and attachment and even sexuality on the internet. There's people that do like elaborate role plays back in like the, you know, mid 90s or 2000s when it comes to like Second Life, for instance, or like Gorian role playing. Or don't look up the Gorian role playing. Don't do this. It's info hazard.
Do not research.
Do not research the Gorian community, okay, on the internet. Don't research. A lot of like weird, creepy 40-year-old shut-ins playing a BDSM, you know, medieval game or whatever on Second Life. So Ernst Younger, Krista Glumbacher story mukbang.
Like, and I'm glad that sometimes these people do not get to live to see the horrors that were wrought.
Oh my God. Yeah. But that's what I mean. Like there's people that write like actual, there was a big moment in the early 2000s where people were writing like theory stuff about like life on the internet. And like they would go into these like obscure communities and write these like travel logs, like these digital travel logs that are quite interesting. I didn't even think I should spell it in the chat. Gory. Maybe I should.
Oh my. I think to some extent you're probably right that a lot of, but it's only digital. People will now live for their romantic or even their sexual pleasures to be solely online. And I think we're seeing that happen a lot where the digital or these theory cell or these confessional, you know, highly curated diaries of the self become our own. So hazardous, he says it twice and then describes it bulgy.
Yeah. Look, Cody Browning, Geo's deep internet knowledge of freaks and perverts is pretty impressive / unsettling. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, we had the dog the pup play military guy that blew up recently. Did you see that yesterday?
Yes, I love
the
Paw
guy.
Patrol.
He's like, I just retired from the military. He's in his pup mask. That's our military dog. That's the military that's gonna go and you know, confront the Asiatic orcs, you know, in the East, you know.
Yeah, that's who we got in the doghouse right now, you know. That's who
the USG, the
USG's got a pit bull on the collar and it's yanking at its chain. Don't you want us to let it out and eat your children? I could see it now. That could be some great military advertising.
Some marketing. They'll like, they'll market it. They'll have like commercials for the pup play view, and it'll have like Godsmack in the background again.
Oh, and I mean, I think you have a point though about the digital stuff, right? Like that Caroline Ellison figure, her whole her Tumblr about like, oh, I like it when like boys will like take over the world, their own banks and countries, and like topple kings. And she thinks that like her idea of polyamory or the polycule should be done like a Chinese harem on a spreadsheet so people know where they are in the sexual hierarchy.
Yeah,
like total. I kind of have to find it funny because I was like, oh, wow, this is like feminine Machiavellianism totally unplugged and totally unmasked because like there's the brutal honesty of how it really operates.
Yeah. There's this one fiction that someone wrote on 4chan. Let me find it for you. And Matthew the Stout, he's like, is this giant Geo's writing? It seems like his autistic way of writing, but I'll send it to you. But I don't think we could probably read it
well, probably not. But in the meantime, I will tell people I will do my own version of shilling. So sneed those super chats, fellas. The entropy link works more fully appropriately now. So keep sneeding, and we'll get back to it. But yeah, no, I think about what happens a lot in these things is the sheer detachment. And I think a lot of ways dehumanization. Like I think we're going to see a fully transformed idea of what makes humans human in the West, especially because, you know,
Oh
we
yeah.
consider the internet a human right in the European Union. We see a lot of focus now on like what accounts are you on, or let me send you, or like let me Snapchat you, or what's your TikTok. Which did you notice that the USG is considering walking in very slowly into a TikTok ban? I noticed that
Really,
one of
eh?
Blinken's aides had said
Based.
that they
Mhm.
were looking into TikTok having such a widespread influence on Americans being a Chinese-owned company. And so I was just like, you know, like that's very interesting. Whereas Trump was very full on adamant about banning TikTok. So maybe they're
Yeah.
walking into it slowly to give the investors and shareholders, you know, a chance to pull their money out, you know, in a Nancy Pelosi style fashion ahead of time. But I do think that, you know, it would be that kind of policy, I think, would create such a shock because millions of people in the United States use it. And I'm just
Yeah.
thinking to myself, damn, you know, what would happen if you took away one of the largest platforms on earth right now and just said, poop, gone for like 330 million people, no more access? What is the social psychology and the social ecology of in the world does that become? And I just couldn't help but thinking about that in the same way that like we've stratified our social media, you know, like really it's Gen Xers and boomers that really use Facebook nowadays. Although I do know some that still use it for their platforms on social media for their content creation. But
Mm.
I think that, wow, for a good chunk of us, especially young people that have been so socialized or indoctrinated into certain beliefs, like I wonder how much of an impact that would do.
Yeah.
So, you know, it does make me wonder.
But what makes you wonder?
Well, if they get rid of TikTok, right? Like what happens to the everyday normal social interactions with human beings if it's gone? Because I mean, people spend an ungodly amount of time on that. Like in the same way, like what would you and I do if there was no Twitter?
Oh
You know, like
God,
if
yeah.
Twitter
Yeah,
got
I wonder.
banned and all of a sudden, you know, what do we do now? Like, do I just like decide to say, back to Telegram, or do I just like focus on writing more, which I plan to do? Because actually, to shill a little here, I have so much like subscriber and patron exclusive writing and video stuff that's available right now on Substack and elsewhere. So it's been a very busy week because I went on a huge rant about the stupid BreadTube tweet. But
Yeah, what did
we
you say about the bread? What
we'd go
tweet was
back to
this?
LiveJournal.
Oh my God, yeah. We
um
go back to live journal.
go back to LiveJournal. I'd go back to WordPress or Substack. I mean, that's the thing though, is that I'm very actually excited about Substack and blogging, like the blogosphere really coming back.
Yeah,
Is this
yeah.
that, oh, I like, because how did Twitter originally get pitched? It became a micro blogging website. And
Exactly. People forget this, by the way. It's been expanded from like what microblogging actually means to like, yeah, yeah.
and so I'm happy that the Substack has sort of come back to
Oh,
the
I have
word.
it. I found the cap. If you want me to read it.
Sure.
Okay. Normies can't understand. So this is from 4chan Paul, if I'm assuming. This is about the relations between Bankman Fried and Carolyn Ellison. Normies can't
Stay
understand
clean.
yeah. Normies can't understand. You want me? Wait, I'll send it to you. Let me send it to you.
Yeah, send
Actually,
it to me and I can just put it. Well, I'll see if I can put it on screen.
it's pretty horrific. By the way, it's pretty horrific. So wait, give me a second. I'm going to Telegram and
There you go. Right, there's another place people can go to. I
oh.
just go there more days to just
By the
like
way,
post the
let
edgier
me
stuff.
give you a yeah. Shilling would be I released the first free hour of Janet reviews the Byung-Chul Han's Infocracy, chapter 4. It's really great. I talk about the rationalists. I talk about Kant. Rousseau and what he means by digital rationality. It's really here you go. I sent it to you. I sent it. So I'm
Perfect.
reading now. I'm reading now.
Okay, well,
So
hold on. Let me just read this real.
this is
No, we
horrific.
cannot go through this whole thing. No, Gio, no.
Wait, it's Kino. It's Kino and Nectar.
I don't care that it's keynote nectar. Some of that
Normies
stuff I
can't
do not
understand the
want.
thrill of pitting. Normies can't understand the thrill of pitting this weasel. Night spent chasing an over-amphetamine Carolyn around the beanbag forts. Her squealing, gibbering,
That's
pounding
enough.
sweat
That's
on the
enough.
verge of seizures. Your friends build up an intoxicating, delirious state with chantings at the sidelines, hitting the Carolyn toy with brooms. She tries to escape. Oh my God! Bankman Free says, "I found you." He runs through the beanbag maze.
Gio,
Fat
Gio,
and poorly
Gio,
Viagra.
stop before we get too much.
His penis thrusting by.
Okay.
Oh my God!
You done?
This is the best thing I've ever read in my life.
I will post this on Telegram for people who are interested.
He will look, Matthew came up. He will catch you.
Well, speaking of Matthew,
Can you
his
imagine
call still
just them and
happened.
an amphetamine craze just chasing each other around the office, like naked and groveling and sweaty and oh God.
Gio,
Oh,
enough of that. Enough.
They're like rats, you know. They're kind of like going around the maze, you know.
And you're enjoying yourself just like One Stop.
He must like get them out the way. Send this to Skeptical Waves. He reads it.
I'll have his robot voice do the Caroline Ellison green text.
Oh, oh my God! I think it popped along.
The internet truly is Plato's Goon Cave, everybody.
I can't get over it. I can't. It's too much. It's too much.
Where are we now on the giant art productions bingo?
Is that considered simping or no? That's considered something else.
I would consider that in the hysterical laughing bit. So let's go through. What do we got so far, gents? We got my good friend. We've said Theory Cell. We have talked about the Austrian landscape paver. I mentioned Goon Cave. Laughs heartily. Yeah. Oh no, that's definitely happened.
Eventually, serendipity finds her mouth.
Stop, Gio.
Oh, sweat gushing down his face around his unfocused eye.
That's enough. Jesus H. Christ. Jesus H.
There you go. We forgot terrible.
Oh my!
You want to mute me?
Enough. He will add another row.
Oh, I quit the last podcast that muted me.
I'm not gonna let you demonetize.
I'm kidding.
The rest of that.
No, the difference is that's my fault. I'm sorry, Prude. I'm sorry. Yeah, serendipity finds her. I like 4chan can produce some of the greatest literary works of our generation. Like even the one about the guy, like you know, what dreams are playing on the radio. He's like, you know, a wine flows through his thick, powerful veins. You know that one, right? Like it's, oh man, just.
I have a folder of a few saved green texts that I will share.
Yeah.
Maybe for an Odyssey one, we'll do a deep dive into green text stuff like this.
I think, you know what's funny is like Carolyn Ellison's probably a product of like online LARPing. Like
she has a Tumblr account, for God's sake. She is.
Well, she probably was a Gorian slave. So on Second Life. So you know, I could imagine her being into that because you know how she like talks about like superior genetics of like steppe warriors and you know.
I'm just gonna look at her Tumblr posts.
Yeah. Well, let's read some of her Tumblr posts if you could find
okay, so here we go. Because hers was let's see, here we go. Here,
you throw it up on screen or no?
This one I probably could, but I'm just gonna read this one. So this is from World Optimization. Trigger warnings, offensive, sorry, or content warning. I feel like a part of me that is interested in HBD is the same part of me that loves personality types and which character are you quizzes. My brain just has a strong impulse to put people into categories. There's a stereotype of racist people that they will like assume any East Asian person speaks Chinese or something. I appreciate that HBD people are the exact opposite of that, and I will make fun of you for saying something about Indians without specifying the province or caste, because come on, there are genetic differences there are massive.
Was she reading Hakan tweets? Maybe.
I bet you she was.
It is funny though how, like, you have to realize these people were like funding the Democrat Party, but yet like
Oh,
they
here's my
have
favorite one.
this weird spurgoid view of reality, which is
From the bow
yeah.
tied.
Go ahead.
Let me open this up in new tab. This one I can put on screen.
Can you put on
This one-
screen?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Give me 1 second. 'Cause this one tells me exactly what kind of person she was, and I'm a fan of it. So let me go zoom in here real quick. So yeah, when I first started my foray into poly, I thought of it as a radical break from my trad past, but TBH, I've come to decide the only acceptable style of poly is the characterized as something like a Chinese imperial harem. None of this non-hierarchical bullshit. Everyone should have a ranking of their partners, and who should know where they fall in the rankings, and there should be vicious power struggles for hire. Like this is the Machiavellian feminism right there.
Like not even like a Paul Cell could come up with this. Like not even like the weirdo shut in like talking about, you know, Bosnian you know what camps. Like this is like next level. She was apparently LARPing on Biz. Oh my god. Amazing.
I believe it wholeheartedly. That is the
Probably.
cold-hearted dragon lady who probably owned a few things related to dragons. Let's not kid ourselves.
Oh boy, yeah. Yeah. She probably was into Gorian LARPing, maybe.
Oh god.
It's maybe she's too young for that. That's like much of an older internet thing, but
like that ever stopped them into
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, true.
I wonder if she was into postmodern systems.
Ooh. But it is funny how these are creatures of the internet. Like how they managed to like like Ellison being like giant Austrian painter productions. Geo no longer following the rules. Yeah, I'm no longer following the rules. Everyone talks about Carolyn and the media spins up far right network. We can save her. No, I didn't see that. Did I see that we can save her?
I don't think anyone posted a "we can save her" bit, but everyone just decided to double down on the 4chan
but she's like
autistic people doing it type of deal.
But she's like the perfect example of like the sort of like ugly, like uggo, like terminally online ugly, like femcel that transformed her own like sexuality through posting and through being like a crypto manipulator and like being this terminally online person to the fact that like this group of like equally ugly, like, you know, let's face it, neurodivergent coders and whatnot, like the fact that they managed to like have this open relationship with her and she managed to like LARP this like poly hierarchy existence. It's very funny how something can be very ancient, like this idea of like the Chinese harem, but yet like rebirthed in this postmodern form on the internet, which I think is why a lot of like these like online Second Life BDSM people that inhabited the early internet, that's why they were like, the internet in a way is like sort of an abstract primitivist machine that's tapping into something much older. Like there's people that write about being in these Gorian communities or whatever. Like it's very, digital cyberpunk Chinese harems. Like it's, but yet like she managed to transform her own ugliness into something that's equally degenerate and ugly. But at the same time, it's almost as if the feat, like the struggle that she went through is quite incredible. But the fact that she did it for evil is like, you know, by scamming people and
it was a spectacle in and of itself.
Maybe I should just write the article, the Ennead of Ellison. Maybe I should do that.
There you go. Gio.
She really was the crypto Helen of Troy, which is something. But go ahead, Kurt. I cut you off.
The face that launched 1,000 shitcoins.
Yeah, the face that launched 1,000 shitcoins.
There you go. That would be the perfect byline. Next scene in the Critic magazine. But oh man. But for her, it was a spectacle unto itself, right? Because like, she would go to work dressed like some sort of Fae or Harry Potter style character.
Oh yeah.
While for her, it was like the purest form of transgression of all sexual norms and morals.
Yes.
To where I can engage and like.
Do you remember my tweet about the orgy, the snake pit? Did you remember that tweet?
Yes. Yes.
Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you. Go to my Telegram if you want to see that tweet, because I had to delete it because I was worried it was gonna like pick up traction.
But I mean, for her, right? Because her style of it was so brutally realistic in
Yeah,
regards
yeah.
to spreadsheet style coomerism, and I'll leave it at that. This spreadsheet super.
Managerialism as applied to sexuality.
Yeah, yeah, the sexual managerialism was so brutally realistic that she could get away with whatever fantasy that she wanted to because they were all based somewhat in reality with human characters and things like that, not in
They
the.
were just human characters. That's how they lived their life. They were
Yeah.
a human RPG. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this Second Life had become the real life to where
Exactly. Yeah.
whoever had came upon them and wanted to say like RP question mark, age, sex, language, or whatever. That was their way of more or less getting their rocks off while trading billions of dollars for both Democrats, Republicans in the war in Ukraine. And
Funny
to
how they
them, it
fund
was nothing
Republicans
more
too, eh?
than
Like
the
it's
embodiment of a like pure Machiavellian Chinese harem autocratic style of sexualization that most people
yeah.
don't engage in. And for them, for these ugly people, for these people that are going to be the fall guys that become that will be hoisted on sort of the petard. I think they'll be the ones that do it. It's like, well, who gets all the blame? It's not Mitch McConnell. It's not the guys in charge. It's not Vladimir Zelensky. It's not the DNC or anyone that was fundraising. It's going to be these two like late 20s millennials or early 30s millennials that had connections and got to use daddy's money and the
Yeah.
money of countless unknown number of customers for billions of dollars to enact their Machiavellian sexual role play in ways that every other person who's in that circle of elites or managers or
Mhm.
politicians, they all do the same. They all get to participate in this, but the
Yeah.
only people whose orgy gets to stop is Caroline Ellison and Sam Bankman-Fried. But
Yeah,
so
it's not
far,
the Eyes Wide Shut orgy. It's like this new polycule monstrosity. Yeah. There's
yeah.
nothing sexy about it whatsoever. Because that's not the point. Like, it's like the Jacques, that guy on Twitter. He's a writer, a Substack
Yeah,
writer.
yeah. He did a great article about the uses
Ugly
and
people like
misuses of the
kink.
end of history.
Oh, yeah, that too. But he said that he had this article where he's like, ugly people need kinks because they're so detached from their bodies that the kink becomes like the only sexual motivator. Like, that was a really great article. But I have this passage from the CCRU book that ties into this. But go ahead, Prude. I cut you off.
Oh no, I was more or less going to just wrap up and say that you had finished my point for me, is because like for them that's the only way for them to view themselves as humans is by
Yeah.
creating a sexual object out of themselves or creating a spectacle out of their kink that literally is exhibitionists. Everyone got to witness full hand, and they all got to get off on it. And so, unfortunately, by us, not only have we been financially, violated, we've been sexually violated by the nature that we were unwilling participants to a disgusting orgy.
Yeah. And they basically took their polycule international by like funding wars and political parties and climate change
Is this the
initiatives.
Bronze Age mindset, Gio?
Maybe, but I don't think. Instead of that, it'll be national nudism with like sexy bodybuilders, nudists. Instead of Carolyn Ellison,
just a little more
it'll be
homofash at the end of the day.
yeah. Or instead of Carolyn Ellison, it'll be like model like beach models that look like Liz Brunig. So that'll Liz Brunig. What you think of this? Like it's national nudism.
There's the BAP impression. It's another one on the bingo sheet.
There you go. Yeah. So this is from I forget which writer. It may have been. It's called the Lemurian Time War in the CCRU archive book about William S. Burroughs. That says the CCRU drew attention. So Key, I'm assuming it's that one woman that was a part of them. Drew CCRU's attention to Burroughs, which is William Burroughs' description of viruses at the APUC is here. What is a virus? Perhaps simply a pictorial series like Egyptian glyphs that make itself real. The paper Key leaves for CCRU includes a copy of the page of APUC text with these two sentences italicized in original text. So it's talking about hyperstition. So it's like, what is a hyperstition? In the hyperstitional model, Key outlines, fiction is not opposed to the real. Rather, reality is understood to be composed of fictions, consisting semiotic terrains that condition perceptual, affective, and behavioral responses. Kay considers Burroughs' work to be exemplary of hyperstitional practice. Burroughs constituted writing and art in general, not aesthetically, but functionally. That is to say, magically with magic definitions and defined as the use of signs to produce changes in the real and in reality. Kay maintains that it was, quote, far from accidental that Burroughs' equation of reality and fiction had been most widely embraced only in the negative aspect, as a variety of postmodern ontological skepticism, which is essentially what this podcast has been, this live stream has been talking about all the time. But rather than to the positive sense, as an investigation into the magical powers of incantation and manifestation, the efficacy of the virtual. For Kay, the assimilation of Burroughs into textualist postmodernism constitutes a deliberate act of interpretivist sabotage, the aim of which was to defunctionalize Burroughs' writing by converting them into aesthetic exercises in style. Meaning that, like, these like lit cells in academia, they basically rob the power of what Burroughs was actually trying to do by like breaking it down into like literary functions, right? Far from constituting a subversion of representative realism, the postmodern celebration of the text without a referent merely consummates a process that representative realism has initiated. Representative realism serves writing from an active function, surrendering it to the role of reflecting, not intervening in the world. So in other words, the lit cell, the word cell, robs this sort of theory fictioning hyperstition, which is the blending of fiction and narrative with the real. It robs it of its vitality and power. And unironically, and this is something that's very controversial for me to say, Carolyn Ellison and Bankman-Fried, through their like Gorean, like primitivist sexual polycule play, that's almost what Burroughs wanted. That's almost like trying to bring their theory fiction into the real in a very disgusting and hideous way. And so almost in a way, Carolyn Ellison and Sam Bankman-Fried are the overmen theory fiction writers of our time. Yeah, that's terrible. I can't believe I just said that. But, you know.
A take so hot you could heat Europe right now in the middle of the winter.
A take hotter than.
A take so hot you could heat
and then
all
a trench and backwood.
Oh man,
God, that's terrible. I shouldn't say that. But yeah, it takes so hot you could like fry an egg in the middle of London while things get colder. You know, man.
But I think there is a point to make all of this, to sort of bring it back to current thing and spectacle, is that a lot of these kind of what we would call countercultural expressions, right? They've been recuperated. They've been reabsorbed into the mainstream because, you know, Lord knows that, you know, we joke about Eyes Wide Shut and everything that sort of came with it. And, you know, they killed Stanley Kubrick for it, I think, in a lot of ways. Is a take hotter than Caroline Ellison.
A take hotter than her Valtrex prescription.
I think the whole demonstration of all of what we have just described in every nitty gritty perverse detail is that this has been recuperated, because even the elites of maybe 30 years ago probably would have done this in private, or maybe they would have been avoidant to it. I mean, even, you know, even Bill Clinton and his escapades were just sort of the traditional married man cheats on a woman and sticks a cigar where maybe it shouldn't be. But, you know, it's not to the degree of managerial style. I'm going to have an appointment with X number of partners or whatever, and I'm going to play it out in real life. And to me, this illustrates the recuperation of, say, like other parts of like bright dyed hair is the mainstream now, or we've got female congresswomen from like Washington with like pink and their gray hair all dyed together in this weird, disgusting salt and pepper Play-Doh style haircuts.
Even Mummy Cinema dyed her hair.
Yeah, even Kristen Cinema of Arizona had dyed her hair.
You know what's funny?
She does the girl bossing thumbs down, voting on it like some healthcare piece of legislation. You know, like, oh, well, this is perfect because this is like the ultimate détrutement of all forms of politics for the left. This is like, oh, our girl boss who's like, making it out on her own. She's openly bi. She dyes her hair. She's got a purse. She speaks for the working man and girl. And all of a sudden, she hijacked our leftist politics and she comes down on our healthcare bill that we were so supportive of. And it's just like, it's the ultimate détruitement right there. It's
funny?
been taken away.
Let me indulge in a JJ the Jackoff plain women's physiognomy take. The more that cinema votes for based right-wing causes by subverting the Democrat Party, the more that even though she's never had kids, she has a mom bod. A mom bod when a woman's had 2 kids and they're like in their like mid-30s pushing 40, but they're still kind of sexy. That's what she looks like. She looks like a mom bod. She looks like, what did JJ say once? That it's like she had 2 kids. You want to give her another one when she comes home from the gym at night. Like, it's the more she votes for based right-wing politics and just cock blocks the Democrat Party, the more she kind of looks like she could have had children. So it's almost like maternalism is reflected in like the physical like stature of like cinema. So even though she's never had kids though, because what is she, like bisexual or something? She's not like a lesbian.
I think she's like 40. How I'm just gonna look up her age because
childbearing hips. There you go.
Because she's she's.
Was
46.
she a feminist, Seth? Yes, of course she's a feminist. Let's not kid ourselves. Sip again. Come on, because cinema looks good. You can't tell me she doesn't look good. She's got the suburban mom bod. She probably had one few too many drinks at the company mixer, and she's like, she wouldn't sleep with her boss, but she's contemplating sleeping with her boss. She's got that look to her.
Gio. Dear Lord,
I've been exposed to JJ the Jackoff playing too much. Like this is like I'm stealing his takes. I'm stealing JJ's takes. So,
and what's worse is that we're both in a group chat with him, and like half of that like chat are more traditionally oriented right-wing shitposting accounts, and then the other half is like Billy Pratt and you and JJ the Jackoff plane. So it's just like a perpetual
men with a wealth of experience when men with no experience like getting together and like.
Yeah. This is it's got more mommy issues, Gio.
Oh God.
Yes, Dugan Ashley. He did respawn as the little engine that touched himself.
Yeah, that's his new account.
That's
hopefully his old account comes back.
Yes, let's hope. That's the other big spectacle, right? Tune into these streams for a change. Some weirdo going on about how some woman. Yeah, well, I don't blame you, Kiri.
Tune into the streams for a change. Weirdo going on about how some woman politician metaphysically has had
you
children.
Missed all the theory selling in the first hour.
Yeah, you missed the first hour we were talking about
Carolyn Ellison spectacle and theory selling. And this happened. It's okay. It's a part of the show. You come for the theory sell, you end with the horny posting. It just tends to be the case.
Well, hey, I mean, when we did that, the one about Lane, we talked about anime women, so that was a good mix-up.
That is true. We've talked about a lot of shit on this show. Anime. We've had Catherine D on. We've talked about a little bit of everything.
Cat people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just when I was hearing I was down bad, I hear this. That's why I'm here. Well, Winston, that's why we're here.
It's funny though how she does manage to capture the Midwestern like upper middle class housewife look.
She is not originally from Arizona though.
No, I think she is. She's got to be.
Maybe, yeah. She was born in Tucson, Arizona. Look at that.
Tucson, not even.
She did move to Defaniac Springs, Florida, a small town in the Panhandle. Yeah,
Byzantium Archon. That's in my channel. We talked about Serial Experiments Lane. That's
so every other episode of the Digital Archipelago is on our own respective channel. Yeah. So that one was on Geo's, and then next week will be on Geo's, and so on and so forth. I think it's the best way to balance the question of, who gets what share of what money. I think it's just fair that it goes to our respective channels. So are we going to cover Jordan Peterson and stuff?
Oh yeah, anonymity. There you go. Let's let's go.
So we'll wrap up with Jordan Peterson.
Do you want to read? You don't want to read Humdog's thing? That maybe we'll save that for another time.
I think we can do that next week or something else.
We'll do so. Yeah. Well, next week I want to do some short story stuff.
Oh, that's perfect.
Maybe We'll think about it.
But
You want to read George Buckai's short story Mother? You want to read that? No, that would not be monetized on YouTube. We read George Buckai's short story.
Let's go with Jordan B. Peterson. And
all right, Jordan. So he's been having another Wendigo psychosis mental breakdown.
And I
came into a hair from ratioing his tweet, by the way, when I said like you lost it.
Oh man, Echo Chambers did
ratioed him pretty hard.
Ratioed him twice. Twice. Oh man, it was so.
It's Machiavellian to like. What do you say about the Machiavellian thing? Like
that it was like Machiavellian to post and be a troll demon to.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Jordan Peterson is waging a fatwa on anonymity.
On anons that are trolling him. And this is the thing. Okay, I will start off with this first. One of the first pieces of advice I got from people like Clossington, Endeavor, and Morgoth is do not pay too much attention to the comment section and do not pay too much attention to your analytics. Do what you think you can do best and go forward there. And what he had said right off the bat, and what does Jordan Peterson do? From what did our friend, who posted it? I think it was like Fueltide or someone, where he had posted that he was totally getting lost in constantly replying to people commenting on any video he did on YouTube. So it'd be random and non. So like he recently did the interesting stream with Benjamin Netanyahu and Ben Shapiro. Net and you. But anyways, he was replying to all these random anons that were calling him out for these positions and for all sorts of stuff like that. And you don't get lost into that. You just can't, especially if you take something that is.
If you have 1 million subscribers, what are you doing? Like
you have 3.5 million followers on Twitter. Why are you replying and getting and talking to us? Which I get it. Some people with a few million followers follow.
You just imagine
your face, coward.
Face, coward.
You don't have the merit to show your real face and name, so I can defame you. Like it's just,
merit. Go to academic agency /merit.
Oh well, it's no longer working. But
it's not. Okay,
no.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Let me go find the original tweet itself because they had a poll out that
was just a poll. Yeah, they put it on screen.
Yeah, but
we didn't talk about the Twitter files thing. But I know what Hemingway is good. I mean, sorry, Oren's going to do a stream with Hemingway with
Mark Hemingway.
Mark Hemingway. Wow.
Yeah, from Real Clear Politics.
I like Real Clear Politics. I used to read it back in like the mid 2000s.
I like them because it's a great place to get like aggregate polling data and just sort of aggregate sort of stuff. So I find it funny that in the midst of this rant about anonymity and everything like that, he's also talking about like the Chinese white papers COVID protests. Like it's so important to spray paint your CCTV cameras and do everything like that. So here we go. This was the here's the poll that was put out, and let me go minimize my messages before I like start showing on the stream because no one needs to know who's DMing me. But here we go. Jordan B. Peterson. By failing to separate anonymously cowardly troll demons from real people in the comment section, YouTube and other social media platforms are enabling sadistic Machiavellian psychopaths and narcissists, which of course I voted disagree. And it's sitting at around 60-40. There's still 6 hours. Vote now. The polls are still open. And so, this is what he's sort of
wait a minute. Fucking ZHP stole my tweet. Oh no, you bastard! You stole my tweet that blew up. No, he stole it. Go to my Twitter. I had the same exact tweet, and I did it first. It had 3K likes, and ZHP stole it from me. Oh my god.
Okay, time to go.
I'm gonna comment right now. I'm gonna comment.
There you go. I will go look up. Where did you do it?
I did it in my account. Yeah.
Is it a reply or is it on main?
No, it's a single tweet. Okay. Go to my account, Giant Geo, and it's the sing. Yeah.
I'll find it, but yeah.
You stole my tweet.
But yeah, here's the double ratio from Echo Chamber. Because he's got what 2,220 likes. So here's the first one. What is Machiavellian about a YouTube comment? And then my favorite one: a prince should post a YouTube comment that hurts Jordan Peterson's feelings. 5,472. But
Wait
God,
a
it's
minute, Prue.
so
Wait,
good.
I'm trying to look.
Hold on. I'm gonna comment.
I'm gonna comment. Okay, so I think I'm trying to look up. So I did it at 7:57 a.m. and then he did it
Law couldn't he
at
spell an author's
1:49
name? What did you
p.m.
expect, Gio?
Tweet thief. Tweet thief.
Oh, man.
If he posted it before me, I'd have a lot of ego. But I'm pretty sure he stole my tweet. So
are there cowardly anonymous troll demons in the room? Anon 6:57 a.m. December 7th, 2022. Then I guess we'll go and check his.
A prince should post YouTube comments on Jordan Peterson.
12:49 p.m. December 7th, 2022. So maybe according
He stole
to...
my tweet. He stole my tweet. He stole my tweet. Oh,
there you go, Gio.
Man, that's
There you go.
brutal. I'm betrayed by my greatest friend, Zero HP Lovecraft. Oh my! I can't believe this. Well, I mean, my tweet got more likes though, so that's
what you get for simping, Gio.
Oh man, I love how people compare. So like ZHP, she should lose some weight. Giant Geo, she should gain some weight. I love how people are doing that now.
Inside of you, there are two wolves. One tells you that she should gain some weight. The other tells you that she could lose some
weight. Geocell army will attain victory over CHP, God willing. I'm gonna comment.
Another victim of the hive mind is Seth Watt. Well, yeah, I mean,
true.
We kind of all are in the same circles where we're all going to buy into the same.
Man,
I don't think I said anything. I just retweeted what people had.
But it is funny he added him though. He like directly commented under it. It is funnier. I gotta admit, it's funnier.
Yeah.
But I did it first though. So I deserve it.
But he's gone on a sort of this long-standing adventure about anonymity.
Yeah.
And
did Barry Weiss drop the Twitter file? Is that why she's trending? Did she drop it?
Yeah. Well, she was supposed to get the Twitter files on like gender stuff. So I'm sure
she got a Control F, so pretty hard. So give her some time.
Yeah. The issue that touting the advantages of anonymity won't face is that an emerging scientific literature indicates the very large proportion of such posters are characterized by the presence of psychopathic and narcissistic traits, that Scott Adams says. And as I've said repeatedly, I don't think such posting should be banned, just that anonymous accounts should be separated from accounts of real people. I'm open to better ideas, but the online facilitation of psychopathic behavior presents a clear and present danger. Makes sense of lols. All you advocating single-minded for the virtues of anonymity, keeping in mind, in fact, that outright sadism is now included in the dark constellation of personality traits with trolling.
And apparently Eugippius said that study is bunk. Like, it has a terrible sample size.
Yeah, I think he posted on his Substack about that. But yeah, I can't
even spell posters. Yeah. No, he says lols. That's like an early 2000s.
Yeah, doing it for the lols. Like,
that's like Urban Dictionary.
Got to be like, what are you looking up? 4chan posts calling people, new slurs circa 2009. Like, he's not even with the times.
It's crazy, man. These boomers.
But okay, so I'm gonna lay out my case here, because he's not the
you go, then I'll go. Yeah,
he's not the only person who's talked about sort of bringing an end or separating. Someone should drop out of the Rafflecopter, go swah 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 swah. But anyways, what irks me about this, and there are others that have written to be against anonymity, and I say this as someone who has shown said visage upon himself. Like, Lord knows that someone probably knows who I am from all of you here. But anyways, we're semi-anonymous individuals, and we talk to anons all the time. A lot of the great works of people that we know, like Lomez, Zero HP.
I'm not semi-anon. I use my real name.
Well, I'm semi-anon. You're not.
Yeah.
But there was an article by Adam Ellwanger, who's a professor down in somewhere in Texas, who had written an article against anonymity, saying that we should really hold ourselves accountable to our real names. And the people that do this stuff are aware of two things. One, that by doing it, either for nature monetization or by showing who you are typically kept within a very tight box of what you can and cannot say.
Yeah.
Whereas, as Astral had famously said when Pedro Gonzalez had said about being noticed or the dissident right being heard or their ideas being brought to the mainstream, is that whatever form of the dissident right will exist, it will always exist because there's never going to be, you guys will never do what it takes. And I think that that's necessarily true because it kind of came out to me when speaking to Jeremy Carl from the Claremont Institute a few months back. He's like, yeah, I've read Spandrel. And I'm like, then you know what's going on, but we can't talk about that because that would mean to address some of the big no-no, holy, magical words that exist in sort of our liberal mainstream discourse. But anonymity is essential for the variety of reasons that I think need to be repeated for the sake of this. There are some things that cannot be said in polite company that are correct. There are sometimes there are people in places with jobs and places of power that cannot say and speak out under the way that it is. Historically, anonymity has always existed in forms of putting out points that are going to be difficult to make, especially as a way to avoid you being a well-named or well-sourced figure. The American political project is founded based upon anonymity, whether it's Silence, Do Good, or Publius when it comes to the Federalist Papers. The sheer nature of the fact is that does it allow for transgressive or sort of edgy behavior? Yes. But does transgressive and edgy behavior, especially moving in a right-wing direction, that goes a long way because the discourse is so far to the left that we've allowed ourselves dialectically with normal face slurs to go, maybe we shouldn't be on so out of the way in regards to denying what anonymity does, because when face lords have dialectics, things move in a leftward direction, and when anons have dialectics and people engage with them, it moves in a rightward direction, and I'm very happy with that. And I mean, I find it to be absurd that some of the most intelligent people I have ever met in regards to Twitter and whatnot and online politics happen to be anonymous individuals. Like, I don't know who the hell Morgoth is IRL. I've never met the man. But Morgoth is probably far more intelligent than the average person when it comes to politics in this day and age. And he's rather anonymous, and he tends to keep it that way. And I think that masks are vital to what we do in society because the consequences of it are insane. Like that firefighter in Virginia that got fired for his job for unfortunately having the Give, Send, Go campaign hacked and having his details leaked info because he wanted to support Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah.
To me, I think that it has a lot to do with the fact that, and what's even worse is that this, I think John D said it best on Twitter, is that who would have thought years ago in 12 Rules for Life that, the aspect of cleaning your room, the last piece of rubbish that you would need to take out would be Dr. Peterson himself.
I love how John D's so savage, man.
But he's true.
Yeah,
but he's right. True. People need their masks to engage in this space. Because let's face it, once you show off who you are limited in a lot of ways about what you can or can't say, unless this is your full-time job, or B, you are protected enough by your clout or your wealth to say what you want to say. And we also know by some
like
other
spectacles
that sometimes they will just take your money away.
Yeah.
And you have to be careful about that. And so, complete your training and engage in the 13th rule for life and learn to move on when it's necessary, and would be the one here. Because I don't consider myself, semi-anon on Twitter to be a psychopath or a narcissist. In fact, I really hate hearing the sound of my own voice. It's why I hate editing videos the most.
Yeah, me too.
But I think at the end of the day, what really makes me disappointed out of everything else here is that one, this is pure elitism. He's the ultimate. He wants to act as the de facto gatekeeper. But two is that this man went through the most dark night of the soul, and unfortunately sold what was left of his soul, and became a sellout in a lot of ways. That now he just sounds like he can't answer a point. He cries often, and I'm fundamentally watching a broken man.
Yeah.
Be upset over those that disagree with him in random accounts and so on. And so it just irks me in a way that, a lot of people got their start from this guy like 6 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever. And it's just like, oh man, what a depressing factor to see him become nothing more than a withered husk of the man that he once was. And all that this is to me, these tweets, these complaints about anonymity and everything that he's done, and even his replies to random YouTube comments on his videos, to me, they are the funeral dirge of a public personality that most of the world has said, okay, time to move on.
Yeah. Yeah, he is a fundamentally broken man. I feel that, I don't mean to bring this up, but like there's something to do with his daughter as well. There's some kind of weird energy there. Like when Dark Night of the Soul was broken because God was right there in front of him and he didn't reach back. Yes. Yeah. I think that when it comes to anonymity, I definitely think that it's important, right? But I do feel like you need the auxiliary of anons to move things forward. But you also need face lords. I mean, there should be every place under heaven and earth. There should be face lords who are anti-fragile enough or who don't like particularly care enough to like suffer like doxing or whatever. And you also need anons who are going to create that energy on the auxiliary. And I feel like the whole like argument that like who is more important, anons or anonymous or like, you know, face lords, I think it's just a stupid debate. I think you need both. I think that unfortunately, like face lords do have a bad track record of like, you know, being doing like sussy baka things. But I do feel that the problem with Peterson is he has a very boomer take in the sense he wants to like still live in a high trust society where people are more or less immune from the consequence, not the consequence, but they're more or less immune from the sort of weight of the opinions that they express because we can fundamentally agree in a high trust society where the sort of shelling points lie. And so he feels that essentially anons are like, you know, weird terroristic forces that are throwing a monkey wrench into that commonly shared mutual agreement of where we place like the Overton window and where we can agree on what society fundamentally is about. But we don't live in those times. This is why he hates postmodernism so much, by the way, is because he thinks it's like a social solvent that has degraded trust in this mutually reinforcing social picture. And so Jordan Peterson is highly, highly threatened by anons because to him, they're essentially like a social id. They're a social shadow self that should be destroyed. But, you know, he didn't even learn the lesson from young. You can't destroy the shadow. You have to integrate the shadow. And so you have to find a way to live and reconcile with the fact that people are anonymous for a variety of reasons. Because, you know, ideally in based world, the opposite, it would be the opposite. Leftoids would have to go anon out of fear. Sorry, did I say the quiet part out loud? No, you know what I mean. In based world, we wouldn't have to be anons. We could all like we should all, you know, both leftoid and rightoid would all like share our opinions freely and use our real names, and we wouldn't have to fear the consequences of such things. But but really, the leftoids have to be anon. But you know, in based world, we would all use our real names and faces, but we don't live in that world. And so Jordan Peterson, he believes that the troll demons that they're not suffering the consequence. How dare they not suffer the consequence of critiquing me and critiquing the liberal world order in which I derive meaning from? Because you have to realize, and people don't realize this, is that yes, Jordan Peterson at one point advanced the discourse forward when it came to like the trans stuff or whatever. But this guy used to, you know, campaign for the NDP like every other Canadian professor in Toronto. So you got to realize that Jordan Peterson, the sort of older, you know, working class leftist version of Jordan Peterson, that's not too different from the Jordan Peterson of what's coming out nowadays when he rails against anons, because he doesn't realize that if he truly believed in what he believed in, then he wouldn't be, you know, railing against essentially a huge portion of his own audience who are anonymous for strategic reasons. And it's
or
like
have grown up from him. That
yeah,
used
or
to
have
be,
grown up
you
from
know,
him,
like
exactly.
you've changed, man.
Yeah.
But
But you realize that the reason why he's so threatened by anonymity is because he's still reneging to the same like classical liberal nonsense that he believes still constitutes the social fabric from which anons are violating. So it's like, that's why he hates it so much. And it's like, Jordan, we don't live in this world anymore. We don't, like, look at what's happening to you. You, like, this is what Starbard said on Twitter, is that the stuff that he put out while he's a face lord didn't really matter whether he was anonymous or he was, you know, using his full name. What he put out there was the same, you know, the same debasement of the self as anyone else, as anyone on the political left. I mean, look at his own life. I hate to say this. I hate to be like, you know, I hate to burn him this way, but it's like, look at what your daughter is. Look at what your own life is. It's like, did it matter whether you were like some nihilistic anon or whether you were Jordan Peterson? Did it matter in the end? No, it did not. Because look at the way he turned out. It's like, I hate to say, I forget the exact, if you could look up Starbard's, I could look up the tweet for you.
Yeah. What I was going to add to it, though, is that you're right. Is that in regards to commentariat, or say the dynamic between anonymous individuals and those that have large accounts or public following, is that there is always going to be, and there always has been, an anon commentariat versus non-anonymous commentariat dynamic that, you know, people, and I'm recording a talk with Stain Haynes about Notice and Move On Friday evening about this, because I want to make this point very clear.
Well, I'm recording a talk with Praisefolia on Friday evening about the Baudrillard. So
perfect. Well, nice. But you know, the thing about Peterson that really depresses me is that this is a guy that thinks every person who disagrees with him is a demon on his shoulder, and that he has to rail against it and fight back. But I mean, the traditional dynamic has always been that anonymous accounts will, you know, help drive and say some of the quiet stuff out loud that will eventually get used in ways that'll do it. And I mean, it's not a perfect dynamic. In a lot of ways, it can be containment. And and that's, the way that it goes. But it's a good dynamic that works. There's a reason why a lot of people put so much stake into what goes on Twitter, is because they're fundamentally aware of how much of an impact it's going to have on the news chyrons, you know, Twitter academics and journalists and things like that. All those things play a role. But for here, anonymity is important because there are some things that should be said that oftentimes will never be said by people like Peterson. And so, you know, what was the big push that a lot of people on the right had an issue with at the very beginning of his stuff is that he talked about very openly campaigning against
pronouns.
Well, pronouns, but no, what did he also campaign against? He said that he was a de-radicalization tool.
Oh, that's right. He had
spurred so many men, young, angry men, away from things like the alt-right 1.0. And so for a lot of people, especially in the mainstream, you know, he was the stopgap and the wall for resentment and rage, and to return people to a classical liberal worldview like it was 2015 again. And that's exactly what AA and company did when they broke down his so-called conservative manifesto.
I remember that.
It was a return. It was a call to go back to meritocracy, my classical liberalism, my open marketplace of ideas, the very things that in the last 7, 8, or really decades, but especially online, were murdered in cold blood right in front of us, because one, they were never really there, but two, what was there, the spectacle of free speech and a marketplace of ideas, was shot dead in open public space where we could all see it. And so, but he wants to return to that, and it can't go back because no one wants to walk back into no man's land and get shot again, because we all saw what took place. But he's telling you to go back into the trenches, crawl into the mud, crawl into the craters and shells of where your friends had once been slaughtered and banned and taken out or doxxed or so on and so forth. No, you can't go back to that. And to call for it now when everyone is telling you no, and you're getting so upset because the dynamic of the discourse has changed, the dynamic of how dialectics happen has changed, tells me that it is time to move on or get with the times. The future is now, old man, and here we are. If you're so afraid of narcissism or psychopathic or sociopathic traits, look to the people that actually want to hurt you. And it's
Yeah.
not going to be anons like us, believe it or not, Dr. Peterson. It's your own government, whether it's disarming you, flooding your country with other people, or openly advocating for medical assistance in dying is people who are as young as minors.
Oh,
So
yeah.
don't get started with me about who's bad or who's the real issue when it comes to anonymity, because the real people that tend to be the problem 9 times out of 10 isn't going to be some guy that's calling you, a Z word on a YouTube, video you did
A
with
Z word
Benjamin.
chill.
Yeah, they're not telling. It's not that guy. That guy probably doesn't have as much power as, say, Justin Trudeau and the people that are working with like McKinsey and marketing advertisement agencies telling me how can I best use my depressed, neat life self to go end it.
Yeah, maybe I should apply for the MAID program then, if that's the case. If NEETs are going to get it, so...
Yeah, I mean, democide is happening right now in Canada, but these are the issues that matter.
Well, and disarmament. I mean, Justin wants to basically take away all semi-automatic firearms.
Yeah.
Like shotguns, rifles. Well, handgun. You can't even buy a handgun anymore. So there you go. Like it's... the only white pill I saw was today the Sovereignty Act in Alberta passed. So Daniel Smith, I believe, is doing like Ron DeSantis style regionalist governance, so that's a good thing. But other than that, like Peterson, like even Aristophanes said this to him, like in replies. He said,
so yeah, here's the one that you sent me.
Yeah,
all that you have done with your own name is run it through the mud by the way of hysterical words and actions. Whatever power you believe you're using one's real name has on behavior was not potent enough to prevent you from acting like a clown.
You should have had enough pride in your name to expire peacefully from opioids.
Well, I wouldn't have gone that far.
Oh, brutal!
I wouldn't have gotten that far. I can't advocate for that, but
like literally, your daughter's being railed by the #1 PUA in the world. Like, it's.
I mean,
what are you doing?
They're going to be recommended MAID. I mean, that was a point Aristophanes had said. That he's just like he's going to be the example for what comes in the future.
Yeah, no, but Aristophanes said like he doesn't comment on these things. He goes after like a huge swath of his audience. He does stupid things all the time, and I hate to say it, I have no more faith in Jordan Peterson anymore. You should not be listening to him. You want your real lifestyle advice, go to Rag Nationalist. Even though I don't really like him, go to Soul Bra. Soul Bra would probably be a better fit for you than Jordan Peterson. Okay, like that's like if you want someone to tell you to like clean your room and whatnot, like just I don't know what to tell you. Like if you think Jordan Peterson's your daddy still, it's like I don't want to insult people, but it's just like it's a really sad indictment of Zoomers and millennials that Jordan Peterson was seen as a father figure. Yeah, was Jordan Peterson ever good? I don't think he was ever good, in my opinion.
I think a lot of people have echoed that resentment, but I think
he butchered Carl Jung. He took the depths out of Carl Jung's analysis by making it into a self-help nonsense program. That's opinion.
The meme that came back with it's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles meme where it's like all the young turtles around the master, and they're like all the young men that Carl Benjamin radicalized in 2016, and then it's like Carl Benjamin back on Twitter, and it's all the big grown-up Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it's like all the guys that are far past his politics, happy that he's back.
Yeah, he's got to catch up now.
He's got to catch up now. And so I think what irks me is that, if you were a younger millennial and right out of college and your life was a wreck, there were a lot of people I knew, especially like a bunch of disaffected white guys that were like, I should get my life in order. This 12 rules for life thing is pretty good. Yeah. But then people didn't want it. And people wanted more, and someone did offer them more about like, you should get your life in order. Here's how the political game is rigged against you. Here's what you should be doing. Here's how you can survive. Here's some beliefs. And I mean, you take his 2010 lectures compared to today, and it's like a totally different human being.
Oh yeah.
And I wouldn't be where I am without someone like Peterson or Carl Benjamin and things like that. I can openly admit it. I have no problem saying that. Well, but at the same time, I definitely grew beyond it. And I'm far faster and far beyond anywhere where they'll ever be. And that's okay.
I think Sargon's probably done more good than Peterson, in my opinion.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that.
People.
I would wholeheartedly agree. And what irks me is that, he's got that, and he's capitalizing on the Bible through the Daily Wire. We can join a prayer app within the first 3 months. Oh, it's so depressing.
God.
He doesn't
believe in God. There was this one video that said like he probably doesn't believe in God. I forget. I mean, my friend
But he
GSP from
doesn't.
War Report.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, he
He's-
went through the most Dostoevsky style of Christian suffering, and you end up with the most agnostic/gnostic interpretation of a god.
Yeah.
And yet
Even
you'll
Russ
go
at
on,
the end of True Detective believed after, you know.
and I mean, even I mean, and you'll stand there and you'll sit next to someone like Jonathan Pajot, who's a
Yeah.
practicing Orthodox Christian and just tries to put people in a direction towards a godly life, whatever form of Christianity you decide.
Or even Vanderklay, even like Vanderklay or someone like that.
He's done stuff with Paul Vanderklay in the past, but no, what all of a sudden, you know, we can't take the step forward to believe. And I mean, like, you know, just like St. Maximus the Confessor says, God yearns to be yearned.
Yeah.
And you turned your back on him. And instead you sold out to the guys that crucified him.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. I think Peterson, well, even like, I mean, I'm assuming Ben Shapiro believes in God. Like
whatever form of God they believe in.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, why doesn't Peterson why doesn't Ben Shapiro tell him, well, you know, Jordan, I mean, it'd be better if like if you're a Christian, you know, be like a Matt Walsh. Why can't he be like Matt Walsh? I mean, but then he's like, but I guess like, you know, Matt Walsh is on our roster. He's got our Catholic vote covered, so it's like he's got the Catholic one covered, and it's like, I don't know, man. It's just like the fall of Peterson's quite an interesting case study, though, of like how he did go through a humongous feat of suffering, and the way that they like went after him, and the way that like you remember those like the lecture he was doing where it was in the University of Toronto and they're like in the pavilion and he's like freaking out and it's like they're like yelling at him and you could tell like being like the snobbish academic his whole life, he's never used to like people yelling at him. And then he like talked, like he went into like lurid detail about like him and his wife, like how he like courted his wife and like she rejected him like 9 times or whatever.
Oh, sort of like, kind of like Richard
just,
Nixon in a way.
Really? I didn't know.
Yeah, Richard Nixon had a interesting courting situation with his wife. Very kind of similar.
Man, terrible.
You know, either you become great men or you wither away like Jordan. And I think what will come out of this though is that in the future there's going to be someone that has a fall. There will be another big right-wing Anon account or some big public personality that's favored on the right that has a fall, and it will be compared to Jordan Peterson.
Did you see that
this
one?
This is a precedent. This is.
Did you see? Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No. What were you saying?
Do you remember that one poster that was like an Italian fascist that said he was gonna, you know, sunset, and then like all these like left-right accounts are like ratioing him? Do you remember this?
No, I don't recall.
Okay, there was this guy, he's like, I'm a fascist, but then he like wanted to, like he said he was gonna, you know, sunset, and then like it was funny because there was a time where like there was even like people on the right wing who were like, you know what, you know, this guy's useless, blah blah blah. But it's funny, it's a funny demonstration of like it when you are at your like worst moment, like people will like use that against you and ratio you. Yeah, Matthew, you remember, I forget the guy's exact handle. I think his account got nuked actually. But then he like regretted it and he said like, I'm gonna live, you know, blah blah blah. But it's like it is a funny moment of how like normie sadism can like crop up to the point where when you do like falter, when you do have like radical outsider politics, then the mass will come after you. But the problem is like what the lesson that Anon learned and what Jordan Peterson didn't is that you really have to harden yourself in those moments of like public vulnerability. Yeah, exactly. So Matthew Stowe is very good observation, Matt. Yeah, it was very pathetic, but people love to be cruel to a dying animal. Exactly. And so people were cruel to that when it came to Peterson. But Peterson, he's like just giving into it. He's not like really learning the lesson the way that Anon, that Italian fascist Anon did, where he's like, you know what? If I demonstrate this weakness to the mass, then it's like they're literally like, how many memes did they post of Mussolini and his mistress being hanged in the gas station, or like that one meme that they have, follow your leader? Like there was a sea of them in the quote tweets. And so that should really harden yourself and say, you know what? If I'm this person, I should live. just to spite these people, just to spite my enemy. I should live and become even more radical, but Peterson didn't learn that lesson, because there were people, I remember, there were people that were like legitimate journalists who were like, well, there's no such thing as legitimate journalists nowadays, but you know what I mean, legacy media, that when Peterson had to go to that like psych ward in Russia and put himself in a medically induced coma, they were literally saying, this is great, I hope he dies, and they're, you know what I mean, they were bragging about it.
Yeah, they were eagerly awaiting for him to slip from his mortal coil.
Yeah. And that should have demonstrated to Peterson that maybe I shouldn't attack people that would be more sympathetic to my message, that maybe I should harden myself and harden my heart towards what I think is like proper liberal society. But yeah, so Donald Trump gaming, he's an anon that probably that knows like these shelling points among like these online groups. He says, to be fair, these people weren't normies, they were online commies. Yeah, exactly. They had the flags, they had pronouns, they had the hammer and sickle. Yeah,
and they were. And Fishy Frenzy makes a point too. Is like, how many times have lefties tried to kill Andy No?
Yeah.
Regardless of whatever you think of Andy No, I mean, they've literally tried to kill him.
Yeah. Like I said before, Andy No has done good work, but he's also like, I think like jumping the gun, which he tends to do, does a disservice. But I think it's understandable when these people like literally are trying to go after him and like, you know what I mean? Like, I think Andy No is, I don't know, he's an interesting case, but these people have legitimately tried to like end him. Like, imagine that. Like, imagine these psychos like trying to go after you. Like, it's, yeah.
And that's what you're up against, and that's what you're dealing with. And at the end of it all is
going. But Peterson didn't learn the lesson.
Yeah,
like,
no.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people out there that vehemently want you. I mean, you had your own sort of, reply guy, reporter, Antifa dude.
Yeah, but that
recently. Yeah, but okay, I get that. But he was after you, and he reported, and he tried to be a big thing. Turns out he turned out to be some kind of predator or racist or whatever, which is hilarious.
Docs Margaret Atwood.
That's so funny.
So funny, man. I hate Margaret Atwood, by the way, but like it's so funny though how like Margaret Atwood's in the same category as like J.K. Rowling now. Like they think she's a TERF. Or
but this is the wall that you need when it comes to your enemies, is to not care, or at the very least recognize that they are enemies.
Yeah,
whereas he gets so, he's mortally wounded in the soul every time someone says something to him. He's mortally wounded every time he replies to someone in the comments trying to defend himself. And I know that everyone's going to have a different take on it, but my God, Lord help that man.
Yeah.
Because clearly he's not the same person that he was. And a part of me wishes he would retire. Because this will kill him. And I don't say that with any joy. I say that with sadness. Is that a guy that got a lot of people probably on the right direction for the first time in their life, especially a lot of disaffected young men. And he's pathetic in a lot of ways, especially now. But if he keeps this job and he keeps doing what he's doing, it will kill him. And I don't think he deserves that kind of indignity.
No. And the thing is, like, he's... Yeah, like Vingol said. By the way, Conscious Car Call in the chat. Hello, my friend.
Hello.
Hope you're doing good from the Dark Continent. He's a pathetic dude. Yeah, he's a shadow of a man. In other words, to quote the Mudvayne lyric. And I think like he needs to he really needs to go out of the public eye, like when he went through his Wendigo psychosis. There, like he needs to. Seriously, I think retire and just like, I don't know what he can do. Maybe he'll like make money off of the Daily Wire grift. But like all these bombastic things where he's like going to a mosque in Israel and he's like, he's like taking on like replying to like anons on his YouTube account that has more than 2 million subscribers more. Like it's like someone in his life needs to intervene. I think like his daughter's too much of a terminal narcissist to like do that. I think his wife obviously has her own health issues and everything. He needs someone.
6 million subscribers.
Nearly 6 million. So yeah. So it's like, I think he needs to really examine what he's doing now. And the whole like 12 rules for life boilerplate shit is like not doing himself anything. Like it's what's he gonna do? Come out with another book and it's gonna be like even he did that already, even more 12 rules,
Yeah,
right?
I think it was like 14 more rules for life
Yeah.
or whatever. Or 12 more rules for life.
12
Yeah,
more
I mean,
rules for life. Yeah. Yeah.
um, and, and I think this is sort of the long arc of history is that self-help guys or people that want you to be better typically will burn out on you. I mean, the Liver King managed to make millions of dollars while buying $10,000s a month on steroids to sell you organic liver or raw animal product supplements. I
Yeah.
actually can't fault him because that's like the American way of grifting. But
It is.
it does in the same way that Peterson is engaging in it. But in the same way, it's just like it's. I wish he would retire in a lot of that regards.
Yeah. But did people believe Liver King was natty though?
I didn't. There's no way.
Come on.
Come on, bros. Come on.
Oh.
But you know what? So be it in that regard. But I guess to wrap this all up before we get to super chats is that the reason why I have Morton Downey Jr. on is sort of the picture is because the 1980s talk show host was sort of different. It was the rise of Oprah, it was the rise of Phil Donahue, the spectacle that would emerge from what we would consider shock jock stuff, or even today on internet blood sports, is that there is a straight line. And it goes back much further, but I always usually start as the genesis of it. Really, the real forerunner is Morton Downey Jr. Because without Morton Downey Jr., you don't get Jerry Springer, you don't get sort of the craziness of Dr. Phil, and you don't get the crazy stuff that came from the radio or from on early internet television.
You don't get Bill O'Reilly.
You don't get Bill O'Reilly. You don't get Rush Limbaugh. You don't even get Alex Jones. You don't get any of these guys. And so,
him and Wally George came around the same time, and they hated each other.
Him and Wally George. Yeah, they knew each other. I think they did something together in New
They
York
did, but they hated each other.
That was the way.
yeah. Wally George like brought him on his show, Hot Seat. He's like, "You're terrible," and then of course Morton Downey just like shreds him. Like it was incredible. Yeah, you don't get Howard Stern even like it's.
Yeah, you don't. But Morton Downey Jr., he had it from what 1987 to 1989. I mean, this was trash TV.
Yeah,
this was the big stuff of New York WWOR TV. Before
this was way before MTV, yeah.
Well before, right?
Yeah.
And his things like Zip It or referring to Palbum puking liberals and trying to have conversations about the controversy of stuff like HIV in the 1980s with his brother, or trying to have
he did the AIDS episode. That's right.
He did the AIDS episode.
Didn't he bring Duesberg on, or no? Like he brought someone.
No,
else?
He had his brother, but he had Roy Innis and Al Sharpton start a fight on national television.
Well, Roy Innis is like, you're a glow in the dark, like you're an FBI informant. Like,
basically.
Well, yeah, wasn't Sharpton an FBI informant though? Isn't that true?
I think so.
Yeah, I think he worked for the FBI.
I mean, this is where you get the really live TV, kayfabe of stuff in regards to that.
He had prostitutes. Remember the prostitutes? That was a hilarious one.
He had that one. He had, he would, just happily chain smoke away and talk about the issues and, call things out in sort of this like trashy quasi right-wing bit, but he also took some progressive stances as well. I mean, he did kind of go to bat when it came to that famous false assault allegation that was rather famous in the 1980s.
Which one was that? Which one? I forget. Yeah, I agree. Donald Trump gaming trash TV is Kino, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Yeah, those old episodes of Hot Seat, like the one where it was.
It was the Tawana Brawley.
Tawana Brawley, yeah.
Yeah, he went to bat for.
Oh, that's ancient, man. Yeah, Ron Paul got chewed up by Morton Downey Jr.
Yeah, because he was pro legalization of drugs.
Yeah,
and Morton Downey Jr. just flicked cigarette ashes into his face and called him a hippie. That was the spectacle.
Yeah,
and we participated every day when we log onto Twitter. The apogee of this all was internet blood sports.
Yeah,
because then you could participate yourself. You could get bloody. You could call in.
Sargon, you're not as smart as I think you are. Like that was.
Have you read Locke?
If you read Locke, Yeah. Have you read the Hulk? Yeah. You're acting like a bunch of white. Oh no.
Yeah.
That's it. You know what's funny is that Sargon we say this every show almost, maybe because we just want him on the show one day.
We do.
Yeah, but it's like Sargon is way more base than Richard Spencer ever could imagine nowadays. Like he won. Sargon won. Like all the memes of like Gamergate and Kakistan and like liberalism, like liberalists, like Sargon, out of all those people, you name them, even the most far right of them, he won. Sargon, he survived destroying UKIP and he won. Like I kneel to the soy father Sargon. I kneel to Sargon. So there you go. Sargon won. Friendly, yes, and Sargon's sensible centrism triumphs over. Look at Matthew's friendly centrism triumphs over homo-fash narcissism. Oh God.
Yeah.
Man.
But I think Conscious Caracol makes the real point here is that there is long-term value in practicing restraint when it comes to resisting getting dragged into prolonged debates on Twitter or really anything else.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to say this ain't worth my time, then it's very easy to get dragged into a dark night of the soul sort of deal here. But let's get to super chats before we turn this into a.
And also, please sneed those super chats.
Yes,
if you want to get
them away. I have entropy working.
Yeah. Oh, you have. Oh, so I'm not seeing all the super chats. There you go.
No, yeah. I've been going through. So we'll just. I guess we'll start with the entropy ones first, and then we'll just go from there. Because then that'll give me time to scroll through and bring up everyone's regular YouTube donations up here. But I'll get OBS to work one day. Maybe I can balance having OBS to work so I can have it overlaid. I'll learn how to do this eventually, especially now that I have a desk proper with my desktop computer. I'm not streaming from my
I will say
laptop anymore.
I will say something about the coiffed gentleman though. Those old clips that people are posting of him are quite kino though. Like where he's like, I mean, come on, we're like white people are the biggest criminals in the world. Like we're talking about crime, we stole whole continents. And then I commented on I forget who it was. Was it Wendigool? Where I said it's funny how his interpretation of that statement changed over the years. Because if Richard Spencer would say it now, he would basically mean it the same way a lib would mean it. That, white people are like the worst criminals in the world. And so it's like, oh, it's so funny, man. It's so funny. I wonder if that debate were to happen again, if like someone were to put like Sargon against Richard Spencer again, like what would happen?
Well, I remember when there was a show on Academic Agent where we were literally doing Rachel Maddow or Spencer quotes. Yeah. And it was almost impossible to tell the difference between modern day Spence compared to
Big Spence.
Big Spence, double couple Lee.
Big Spence, I got a question. I had one on Telegram where I said like, I'm a big blue yellow proponent. It's like, how do we get these Vatniks Heimart up, bro? Like,
oh man. All right, so we'll start with the
Dr. Fauci double couple lean.
God, it was so good.
He got him again. He got him again recently. Where he's like, I got Tony the Tiger cooking crack.
But all right, I'll start with the YouTube ones first. So Son of Haster for $10 US says, always happy to see you boys go live. Gio, happy feast of the Immaculate Conception.
Thank you.
Looking forward to you both on Millennial.
For $10. Thank you, Son of Haster. Thank you very much.
I'm very thankful. And yes, I'm very much looking forward to Millennial. I'm very excited.
I can't wait to talk to Colin, to Woes, man. It'll be great.
I still can't believe that he's having Kino Casino on.
Yeah. I hope it's
going to be a wild trip.
Though. Yeah.
Subhuman Gacho says for $1.99 US. Thank you so much. He says, Gio, have you potted with Jack Mason? Would be great.
Who's Jack Mason?
I don't know.
Send me like.
If you're still around, post in the comment section.
Yeah, Jack Mason. That sounds familiar though. I hope you don't mean James Mason. That's never gonna happen. He did. Did you watch the second one he did with It's so crazy. They're like split by 30 years apart. he did the second interview with Bob Larson.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it happened like last year, and Bob Larson's still doing like oh, you mean perfume? You mean Jack the perfume? I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon. But well, if you look at my Telegram, I had a very spicy rant. But I don't know. I don't have anything against the perfume nationalists. It's just that. Never mind. I shouldn't say anything.
All right. So the next one is from Fishy Frenzy for £2. Oh, geez. There's another one for the bingo sheet. Is Wood. Rod Dreher's ex-wife.
Who's
Wood.
Rod Dreher's ex-wife?
I'm not pulling up an image. I'll let you do that one on yourself.
Ex-wife. Yeah, he got divorced. Yes. Wait, let me.
Yeah, it was about a year ago. Rather depressing.
Dreher, ex-wife. Julian Harris Dreher, is that her?
Yes.
Okay, let's look this up. I'm trying to find. She's all right, I guess. I don't know. She's all right. She's pretty. Yeah, she kind of looks like Cinema a little bit. I don't know. It's weird.
Oh my. Well, there you go.
I don't know. She's playing Jane, but I mean, yeah, I wouldn't kick her out of bed. I don't know.
There's your answer there, Fishy Frenzy. Emperor Tinfoil for $20 Australian. Thank you so very much. Legitimately, this is currently the best show out there. God bless my dudes and keep at it. Well, we certainly plan on it. Very blessed that we're 22 episodes in and we've earned that title. Go wave the belt around. But we try our best to keep it. I love the dynamic that Gio and I have. I constantly am glad that it worked out the way that it did. So
for $20. Sorry, I got distracted by Rod Dreher's wife. For $20, thank you very much, Emperor Tinfoil.
We're very thankful. Oh, so blessed. It means so much, as AA would like to say.
It means so much.
It means so much. Let me see if there's any more from our current crop on the YouTube
Australian dollars, though.
So
well, it's almost on par.
Almost everything's on par with the U.S. dollar. That's how bad the economy's been.
Even Canadian dollars.
Yeah. So I'm going to go head on over to the entropy ones. So Mr. Patchouli for £5 sterling says White Pill Christmas. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, White Pill Christmas.
Cringe Walker for $3 US. Have either of you read the Child Cycle series? It was written a few years ago before the end of history, but details a cabal of humans trying to freeze culture to ensure their permanent regime.
Whoa!
No, I have not. This is
Gordon R. Dickinson. Is that where it's? Let's see.
The Child series.
Unfinished series of science fiction novels by Canadian writer Gordon R. Dickinson. Six blah blah blah. I think this is it. Interesting. I've never heard of this.
I haven't either. When was the first
I'm not
one?
a big nonfiction person, fiction person, but
this is science fiction. It seems to be the first one. Main science fiction novels of the Child Cycle include Dorsai, alternate title, The Genetic General, 1959. Necromancer, 1962. Soldier Ask Not, 1967. Tactics of a Mistake. Wow, he did this for like 3 decades.
Yeah.
And the last one in 1988, but he had some other ones before he had died. Wow. Gordon R. Dickinson. When did he die? He died in 2001.
Interesting.
Huh. Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to look that up. That sounds really.
He died right before the end of history.
Yeah.
In 2001. Sorry, the reintroduction of history.
Yeah, he died January 31st, 2000. Yeah, right before history got started again.
Interesting.
I'll have to look it up, though. That sounds interesting. Mr. Patchouli for £10 sterling says, Death Metal Growl, Peterson tweets demons. I guess that one's for you, Gio.
Do you want me to say Peterson tweets demons? Or you want me to say Anonymous Troll Demons?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Anonymous Troll Demons. There you go. That's good.
The next one is from Cringe Walker for $3 US. He says, the Russians melted his brain. Why are you expecting him to be reasonable? He is a man with severe brain damage.
Has Peterson tweeted about the Blue-Yellow War? What's his opinion?
I haven't. I would imagine that it's going to be the default American opinion on that one.
What does Ben Shapiro think of the war? Because that's usually what Peterson thinks nowadays.
Well, then I'd imagine to be vehemently pro-Ukrainian and pro-Zelensky if that were the case.
Is he?
I don't know. I mean, I think he's a little busy focusing on other things right now, like
Maybe.
debating about a certain country's right to exist,
I
which I
think
guess is rather fitting for the
Yeah,
also
I
that
think
conflict.
I think because the head rabbi left Russia in Moscow, that's probably why he's pro-Ukrainian. So I
Probably.
don't know. I think if I recall, maybe like I'm not making a joke, Ben Shapiro. I think Ben Shapiro does buy into like the lie that like, oh, the Russians are anti you know what, like they're.
Mm,
I think like I don't know, like they're. It's always debatable though. I think like certainly on the ground there are quite a bit of like counter Ben Shapiro's people on the ground, but I think like Putin himself, like I don't know, there's always an ambiguity whether he's like pro or anti um that nation of the Middle East, right? Like I think he initially wanted good relationships with them, but then because of like the American influence, I think like that ship has sailed. I don't know, like I
yeah.
could be wrong. I know that the Knesset still talks to Moscow. They're not like as hard line against them as like the rest of the West is. They're sort of like the French in that like Macron is like willing to talk to Putin, but like I know like they've sort of suffered relations between each other because like between the Kremlin and the Knesset because like of the Syrian situation. Because as you know, like they're obsessed with toppling Assad, right? So
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
that's going to always be an area of concern, especially now that I mean, because even Macron, but also the Israeli,
yeah,
prime minister had played a huge role in trying to negotiate a peace that had been kind of turned sour
yeah,
once Iran got more involved. So, I mean, this is not going to end anytime soon.
yeah.
Um,
Well, Philip Dano brings up a good point. Putin's cabinet's more ethnically and racially diverse than Z-Man's. Yeah, that's true. I mean, he actually has people who are of Israeli descent in there, but also, I mean, a lot of them left. He's got like Tuvars and Tartars and Chechens, and
and I
he's
think
got the
one
whole
Kazakh
Russian.
as well.
Yeah, he's got a lot of Yeah, he's got the whole like
Got the
the
whole step.
the whole Eurasian steppe in his
He's got the
cabinet
whole
there.
step, balling right there in the cabinet.
Yeah.
But Jacob Brown for $2 US says ahoy. Well, hello and
Thank you,
welcome.
Jacob Brown.
Thank you so much. Let's see, going down through the entropy ones. Ben, subject to change on entropy, just sends us a smooch emoji and someone painting their nails. So
Nice.
I'm reminded of Patrick Casey's constant battles on Telegram with schizophrenics online.
You know what's funny is that I saw this article from the Washington Compost that was freaking out because Twitter ads were appearing on the names of Andrew Anglin and Patrick Casey.
Oh my. Um,
Oh man, it's hilarious.
but yeah, so I find that shit to be hilarious. But if the
Yeah.
smooching comes our way, so be it. I mean, if you're gonna
Yeah.
smooch for $5 US, smooch away, good sir. Ben Gaines for $5 US says, "Here's $5 for the extremely cathartic discussion on Peterson." Well, I'm glad that it was cathartic for
Yeah.
some. I pray for the man. That's all I can say. And last but not least, so far it seems, Polish ambassador for $3 US. Can we get a Geo/Prude dedicated anime review channel? Where is the free market when I need it? With the
Man.
golden. Oh, that would force me to watch more anime, and I don't know how I feel about that.
If we got money for it, then we would do it. But like, I wonder what can we review? I mean, of course, like apart from the classics, like Cowboy Bebop, Fist of the North Star, what's the other one? Evangelion. Like, how many episodes are
I
in
saw 2
Evangelion?
episodes of Evangelion on a friend's recommendation, and I felt weirded the hell out. I was like, why is this so overtly sexual towards a prepubescent child?
Yeah, true.
It's not my cup of tea.
No, but what if
I
we
like
got
Fist
into
of the
like
North
the cutesy
Star.
ones? Like,
I've
what if
been
we?
If we were reviewed the Ghibli films or whatever.
Well, not Ghibli, but like if we, yeah, I mean, we could review.
I've been told I need to watch Legends of the Galactic Heroes because
Yeah.
it's apparently the way based world happens.
What's like the one that all the Sussy Baka like people watch? Like the
No
real
idea. No idea. There's Akira as
no,
well.
but Akira. But I mean, like the really girly ones. Like
I have no idea, man. You're
I
asking
don't
the
know,
wrong
man.
dude.
Hero Academy. I don't know. Like it's yeah.
Oh, what was it?
K-On! Yeah, K-On! What's K-On? Princess Tutu. Yeah, K-On. You go.
I have by happenstance because it was recommended on the YouTube and it looked cool. I did watch all of Area 88 on
Nice
on YouTube because it's free and available, and that's anime's version of Top Gun, and it's very good. So
is K-On! About the high school band chicks?
I will recommend that one.
I like Mio. Yeah, Mio and K-On's pretty cute. I gotta admit. I should say these things in public.
TB88, Geo, get back to painting. Also watch Angel's Egg.
I have. I'm doing a commission. I'm almost done a commission right now, but like next year I want to focus on posting more art. I've because of the podcasting thing and a lot of the transformations that have happened since leaving FTR. Then I'll get back into art posting. World's End. Yeah, Mio from K-On! Is best girl, by the way. So,
and then Ogata with once again the never-ending meme that I have between him and him. Frog of the week, Tsuya Asui is inevitable. It probably won't be. I don't even know. Like I had to Google when this was originally suggested because I thought, well, that's not really Latin unless this is some obscure frog species, and then it's some like frog person from anime. Yeah, and I was like, oh, well, that's definitely never going to be.
Well,
Frog of the week.
It would be a good troll though. If you guys want my anime takes,
the main protagonist in My Hero Academia.
Oh yeah, there you go. That's where I heard the
hero. Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah, My Hero's Academia. I heard that's pretty good. It's pretty Kino.
Okay. Well, I guess it's a good troll for nonetheless. It's a good meme.
No, but if you want to pay me money to hear my anime takes on Giant Productions at patreon.com, I have a whole segment where I relate the Tarkovsky film Stalker to Girls Last Tour, the anime, and it's in the Solo Variety Mega Show 2, the second.
You're comparing Tarkovsky. Okay.
Yes, it fits. It's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
But last but not least, I think this is the last of the super chats.
we have a super chat from
I know from Byzantium Archon. Let me go
nice, a good
get
friend.
Off of Entropy here and go to
K-On! Covers Slipknot. Oh my god.
Oh wow.
Now I have to watch K-On!
But anyways, so for $20 US, thank you so much.
$20.
You should review Evangelion just because of the Christian symbolism, even though people who made it just used them because they looked cool. There's a reverend, I think, IDK with Christian priest terms that reviews an anime. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that I've heard that is in Evangelion, like Adam, Eve sort of stuff, the Christian symbolism with the cross. I guess. I mean, if I'm ever going to try and finish that mecha anime, I guess I might as well review it for the Christianity symbols, because anime traditionally is just not viewed Christianity in a very favored light. I mean, in Berserk, the Church of the Holy See is not viewed as the good guys, but rather the destruction of the belief in the world that isn't related to their. They almost take a very Roman view of Christianity in a way that, like, it's almost atheist to believe in one God. Or to not, believe in something else. I always found that interesting, that comparison.
The Roman paganism, that's how they viewed early Christianity, is like it's a form of atheism. Which, ironically enough, this is what Richard Dawkins said. He's like, Christians are just atheists with only one God they didn't remove yet. Like, it's so stupid. But the Roman pagans had a much more, like, they had a right to say, like, from their worldview, it was a form of atheism. But Richard Dawkins saying that Christianity is like atheism is stupid. But
well, because it's in a way trying to say, like, well, actually, they're really just
actually,
it's like, well, actually, they're just our long lost brothers that haven't lost that one God yet. And it's just like, no, Richard Dawkins, we're nothing like you. But maybe I could. Maybe I could review it. Maybe I could.
Look at this. But I'll be on Exile. You should watch Akiba Maid War. It's a gangster maids in cafes fighting each other for Wow, that's amazing. I'm gonna look this up. Maids that have guns that are anime characters.
Jeez. Prude going snob mode? No, it's just I've never had a fascination with anime. I never had. And my best friend.
Me neither, man. But I'm getting used to it.
And my best friend in high school, God bless him, who I will probably be the best man at his wedding, because he's engaged and all that jazz. But like, he's my best friend IRL, and he's tried for almost 15 years now to get me to watch anime and to be interested in it and to be hyped about it in the same way he and his brother and sister and his parents are. I can't.
Oh wow.
I can't do it. I've never. It's never been my. It's never been my cup of tea. It's not that I'm being a snob. I've actually liked all the stuff that we've reviewed on the show so far, and I've liked some of the stuff that I've got into it. But it's just, it's not my cup of tea.
What's the one anime? Oh God, she has like that very particular face. She's again another high school girl, but she's got the very big eyes, and like she's got kind of like a slender face. I always see memes of this anime. It could be from. It's not from Evangelion. It's probably from another one.
I couldn't say.
Man, and HK.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm just gonna answer this one. Depending on your take, I like using the Dwayne Reams 1899 revised American version for the New Testament. If you can get a Septuagint translation into English for the Old Testament, I highly recommend it. Or the Third Millennium Bible, which has all the Apocrypha in it, depending on how you view it. But I also love the language in the King James original. Like that's just some of the most beautiful words ever compiled together in the English language.
Yeah.
Do you have a specific way that you prefer to read scripture or a specific translation?
I like the Dewey Reams, but sometimes I just go with the King James sometimes. But yeah, the Dewey Reams I tend to stick to. But it depends like like when me and Lambda were reading Psalms 22, that like we use the New International Standard because like the language is just clearer and like so
yeah, like I have a few Greek intralinears that also do the translations into the new Revised Standard Version, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
But like for instance, like my Orthodox Study Bible has a King James New Testament, but its Old Testament's an English Septuagint translation, the LXX. So.
Nice.
It just having more copies of scripture in different translations is always really helpful. I think in ways that understand how you can communicate with other Christians and how they may view it or read it, because translation does mean a heck of a whole lot.
Yeah.
But I think that's
Chica
the last.
Fujiwara. No, I'm not thinking of Fujiwara.
I think that is the last of the super chats. So Gio, anything that you'd like to plug in?
Yeah. Like I said, yesterday I released the first hour is free on my YouTube channel. But then the rest is on patreon.com/ShineArt of the 4th chapter of Infocracy. And I believe this weekend I'll release the final chapter of Infocracy, and then I have to start reviewing Necropolitics. And next week on Content Minded, but it's going to take a lot of editing. I'm probably going to release the Impossible Princess episode on art and design and aesthetics and a bunch of different stuff. So yeah, it's going to be great. So yeah. And next week, I don't know, Digital Archipelago is on my channel. We'll still have to go through, like, we have a few ideas for other things, but maybe we'll do short stories or something again. Yeah. So there you go. Give me money on Patreon.
There you go. All of Gio's links are down below in the description to his YouTube channel, Patreon, and his Find My Friends link. As for me, I've got some patron exclusive articles available on subscribestar.com/the Prudentialist, as well as on Substack. So if you wish to be a backer on Substack or Subscribestar, both articles are available to you, as well as a rather fun rant on some BreadTube slippery slope tweets about Christians going full NatSoc and forcing people to practice or else. And that I have a new video out that came out earlier on Monday called The Hegemon and the Revisionist, sort of talking about how we can use international relations theory and applying it to our domestic politics. And then this Friday, I'm recording with Stained Haynes on the subject matter of Notice and Move On and right-wing Twitter. So that should be a fun, long conversation. We've got some notes on that. And then this weekend, I am recording the first couple of chapters of What Went Wrong, the creation and collapse of the Black Jewish Alliance by Murray Friedman, and Dimes from Blood Satellite and I are going to review that book in late January. So we've got a lot of stuff coming on from there. And then this Saturday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, it's going to be me and Raging Mantrel reviewing the 1999 text Unrestricted Warfare from the Chinese. So it's going to be a very good time.
Nice.
Yeah.
We have a good comment by Nikki. Geo, my BF, says that he wants you a lot to know about and dig deeper into the idea of Syndicalist Guild and Technate League. Time is running out, he says. I've heard vaguely of the Technate League, but I'll have to dig deeper. That's very interesting. I think international, because it deals a lot with international relations. So you'd probably be interested in this, Prude.
Probably. I'll have to look into it and take a look.
Syndicalist League, yeah.
But with that, we will see you all next Thursday and on our respective channels. Follow us on Twitter. All of our links down below in the description, and we will see you all next time.
God bless. Goodbye. Too sweet.